Hello friends. Did you know nearly 80% of those who watch my videos aren't subscribed? If you enjoy these stories, please hit that subscribe button and leave a like. It really helps. Thank you for being here. By the way, where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments. It was past 2 in the morning when I rolled through the last checkpoint before the Gen Kong stretch. Richardson Highway, southbound from Fairbanks. The kind of route where you don't see another soul for hours if the weather turns. And tonight, the weather had turned bad. My name's Waylon Trask. Been driving long haul for 12 years. Most of it up here in Alaska where the roads don't forgive mistakes and the cold doesn't give second chances. This particular run was supposed to be routine. Plywood pallets and construction insulation headed down to Anchorage. Light enough load, but the schedule was tight. I had 13 hours to cover 300 miles, and that doesn't sound bad until you factor in black ice, wind shear, and visibility that drops to nothing when the snow decides to move sideways instead of down. The thermometer on my dash read minus 32 Fahrenheit. Outside, it felt colder. The kind of cold that makes metal brittle and turns moisture in your breath into tiny crystals before it even leaves your mouth. I had the heat cranked, but it barely kept the cab warm enough to stop the windshield from fogging on the edges. The highway stretched ahead like a tunnel carved through nothing. My headlights threw back white cones that barely penetrated 20 feet. Beyond that, just darkness, and the occasional reflective marker blinking past like weak little heartbeats. The road was narrow here, 2 lanes with no shoulder worth mentioning, just a steep embankment on one side and a drop into frozen scrub on the other. Chain laws were in effect, and I could hear mine clanking in rhythm under the trailer, a metallic song that usually puts me at ease. Tonight, it sounded different, sharper, more insistent. The CB radio hissed with static. I'd been monitoring Channel 19 for the last hour, hoping to catch another driver, maybe get a weather update or just hear a human voice. Nothing. Just that endless wash of white noise, occasionally broken by a pop or a crackle that made me think someone was about to come through but never did. I reached for my thermos, still half full of coffee that had gone lukewarm an hour ago. Didn't matter. I drank it anyway, eyes on the road, one hand on the wheel. The wipers scraped across the windshield in lazy intervals, pushing aside the fine snow that kept accumulating. It wasn't a blizzard, not yet, but it was building. I could feel it in the way the wind buffeted the trailer, in the way the road seemed to disappear just a little faster with each passing mile. That's when I passed the first mile marker, mile 247. Nothing unusual about it. Just a green, reflective post with white numbers, same as 100 others I'd passed tonight. I noted it out of habit, the way you do when you're trying to stay awake and aware. 13 miles to the turnaround point where the road widened, and there was a pullout with a heated outhouse. I was planning to stop there, check the straps, maybe grab 10 minutes of rest before the final push. The CB crackled again. This time it didn't fade back to static. A voice came through. Faint, like it was traveling from very far away or through some kind of interference. "Still there?" I grabbed the mic, thumbed the button. "This is Waylon, southbound on Richardson near mile 247. Go ahead." Static, then barely audible, the same voice. "Still there?" "Copy that, I'm here. What's your 20? You need assistance?" Nothing. Just that low, endless hiss. I waited, mic in hand, watching the road and listening hard. Sometimes, transmissions bounced weird up here, caught between mountains, or got chewed up by atmospheric conditions. But this didn't sound like interference. It sounded like a question. A specific question, repeated. I clipped the mic back and turned my attention to the road. The snow was getting heavier now, swirling in the headlights like a living thing. Visibility dropped to 15 feet, maybe less. I eased off the throttle, letting the rig slow to 40, then 35. Speed didn't matter if you couldn't see where you were going. That's when I saw the figure. At first, I thought it was a road sign, something tall and dark standing just off the shoulder on the right side. But as I got closer, the shape resolved into something else. A person, standing motionless, facing the road. I hit the brakes gently, felt the anti-lock system pulse under my foot. The trailer shuddered but held the line. I rolled to a stop about 20 feet from the figure, hazard lights flashing, and stared. It was a man, or at least it looked like a man. Heavy parka, hood pulled up, hands buried in pockets. He wasn't moving, wasn't waving for help, just standing there in the middle of nowhere, in minus 30-degree cold, like it was the most natural thing in the world. I rolled down my window an inch, letting in a blast of frigid air that stung my face. "Hey, you need help?" No response. The figure didn't turn, didn't acknowledge me. Just stood there facing south, the direction I was headed. I laid on the air horn. One long blast that echoed out into the frozen night and died almost instantly, swallowed by the wind and snow. Still nothing. Every instinct I had was screaming at me to roll forward, leave this behind, keep moving. But another part of me, the part that still remembered what it meant to be decent, wouldn't let me. You don't leave someone out here, not in this cold. Exposure kills in minutes, not hours. I grabbed my flashlight from the door pocket, pulled my gloves on tight, and zipped my jacket all the way up. Then I stepped down from the cab, boots crunching into the snow that had already accumulated on the asphalt. The cold hit me like a physical blow. It sucked the air from my lungs and made my eyes water instantly. I clicked on the flashlight and swept it toward the figure. He was still there, hadn't moved an inch. The beam caught the edge of his parka, dark blue or black, hard to tell in this light. His face was hidden deep in the hood. "Hey!" I shouted, voice muffled by the wind. "You hurt?" I took a step closer, then another. My boots found traction on the ice underneath the snow, but barely. The figure remained still. 5 feet away now, close enough to see the frost that had formed on the outside of his jacket, tiny crystals clinging to the fabric like a second skin. Close enough to see that his hands, still in his pockets, weren't moving, not shivering, not shifting, just still. "Buddy, you need to get in the truck. You're gonna freeze out here." I reached out, intending to touch his shoulder, shake him awake if he was in some kind of hypothermic stupor. My hand passed through empty air. I stumbled forward, off balance, flashlight swinging wild. When I turned back, the figure was gone. Not running, not walking away. Just gone. Like he'd never been there at all. I swept the beam in a full circle. Snow and darkness. Nothing else. My breath came fast now, fogging in front of my face. I could feel my heart hammering in my chest, adrenaline cutting through the cold. Then I looked down. No footprints. Not a single mark in the snow except my own boot tracks leading from the truck. The spot where the figure had been standing was smooth, undisturbed, as if no one had stood there in hours. I backed toward the cab, flashlight still sweeping, and climbed in fast. Slammed the door, locked it, and sat there breathing hard. My hands were shaking, and it wasn't from the cold. The CB crackled. "Still there?" Same voice, same question. Faint, distant, but unmistakable now. It wasn't asking if I was there, it was asking if someone else was. I grabbed the mic, hands still trembling. "Who is this? Identify yourself." Static, then clearer this time, a different voice, older, rough. "Don't stop for him, son. Just keep moving." I recognized the cadence, the tone. It was a trucker. Someone who'd been on these roads long enough to know what he was talking about. But before I could respond, the transmission cut out, swallowed by static again. I sat there for a long moment, engine idling, heater blasting, trying to make sense of what I'd just seen, or hadn't seen. My mind ran through possibilities. Hypothermia. Hallucination, no, I felt fine. Fatigue? Maybe. But I'd been tired before and never seen things that weren't there. Reflection, a trick of the light and snow? None of it felt right. I put the truck in gear and eased forward, eyes locked on the road ahead. The snow was coming down heavier now, and the wind had picked up, rocking the trailer in sharp gusts. I kept my speed low, watching the markers as they appeared and vanished in the sweep of my headlights. Mile 246, mile 245, mile 244. And then, ahead in the distance, another figure. Same stance, same parka. Standing on the right shoulder, motionless. I didn't slow down this time. I kept my foot steady on the throttle and rolled past, eyes forward, refusing to look directly at it. But in my peripheral vision, I saw it turn. Slowly, tracking me as I passed. My hands tightened on the wheel. Mile 243. The CB came alive again, but this time it wasn't a voice. It was a sound, low and rhythmic, like someone breathing close to a microphone. In and out, slow and steady. It went on for 10 seconds, maybe 15, then cut out abruptly. I reached for the volume knob and turned it down, but the sound continued, barely audible now, but still there, like it was coming from somewhere inside the cab instead of through the speaker. Mile 242, another figure, left side this time, same parka, same stillness. I didn't look, didn't slow, didn't stop. I just kept driving, eyes locked on the white line disappearing under my bumper, jaw clenched so tight my teeth ached. The turnout I'd been aiming for was still 8 miles ahead. 8 miles felt like 80. The CB hissed and popped, then, crystal clear, a third voice, younger, calmer. Mile 247. I froze. That was behind me. I'd passed 247 10 minutes ago. I glanced at the next marker as it loomed out of the snow. Mile 247. My blood went cold. I checked the odometer. I'd driven at least 5 miles since I first stopped. The numbers didn't lie, but the marker did. Or I did, or something in between. I pressed the throttle down, felt the engine growl as the rig picked up speed. 35, 40, 45. The chains screamed against the ice, and the trailer started to sway, but I didn't care. I needed to get out of this stretch. I needed to see something different, anything different. Mile 247, again. No. I slammed the brakes, felt the entire rig lurch and skid, tires fighting for grip. The trailer jackknifed slightly, then straightened as the anti-lock system kicked in. I came to a stop in the middle of the road, hazards flashing, breath coming in ragged gasps. The CB crackled one more time. Still there? I didn't answer, I just sat there, staring at the mile marker in my headlights, watching the snow swirl around it like it was the only solid thing left in the world. And then, slowly, I saw another figure step into view, directly in front of the truck. Same parka, same stillness. But this time, the hood was down, and I could see its face. It was my face. I don't know how long I sat there, staring at my own face in the headlights. Could have been seconds, could have been minutes. Time felt wrong, stretched thin like taffy pulled too far. The figure standing in front of my truck looked exactly like me. Same build, same weathered features, same scar on the left cheek from a bar fight in Whitehorse 10 years back. Even the way it stood, weight shifted slightly to the right, favoring the hip I'd injured in a rollover near Prudhoe Bay. But the eyes were different, empty. like looking into two holes drilled through ice. My hands were locked on the steering wheel, knuckles white. Every survival instinct screamed at me to reverse, to turn around, to do anything except sit here and stare. But the road behind me was narrow. The trailer was long, and backing up on black ice in near-zero visibility was a good way to end up in a ditch or worse. The figure tilted its head. A small movement, curious, like it was studying me the same way I was studying it. Then it smiled. Not a friendly smile. Not cruel either. Just empty. Mechanical. Like someone who'd forgotten how the expression was supposed to work and was copying it from memory. I grabbed the mic, hands shaking so bad I nearly dropped it. "This is Waylon Trask, southbound Richardson, mile 247. If anyone can hear me, I need assistance. I need..." Static swallowed my words. The CB hissed and popped, then went completely silent. Not even the background noise, just nothing. The figure took a step closer. I jammed the truck into reverse, heard the warning beeps, felt the trailer shift. My boot pressed down on the throttle, and the rig started rolling backward, slow and awkward. The figure didn't chase. It just stood there, watching, that empty smile still fixed on its face. I backed up 20 feet, 30, eyes flicking between the mirrors and the windshield. The figure grew smaller in the headlights but never disappeared completely. It just stood there in the middle of the road, arms at its sides now, perfectly still. When I'd put enough distance between us, I cranked the wheel, trying to angle the trailer for a turnaround. The chains bit into ice, and the whole rig shuddered. I could feel the weight shifting, the trailer wanting to slide sideways. I eased off, straightened out, tried again. The CB burst to life. "Waylon," my own voice, coming through the speaker, flat and emotionless. "Waylon, you're going the wrong way." I grabbed the mic, nearly shouting. "Who the hell is this?" "You know who this is." I threw the mic down, hands back on the wheel. The figure in the road hadn't moved, but now I could see others. 3 more shapes standing at intervals along the shoulder, all facing me. All wearing the same dark parka, all perfectly still. I got the trailer straight and shifted into first gear, easing forward. I wasn't going back, I couldn't. North meant Fairbanks, meant people, meant warmth and lights and sanity. South was just more empty road and whatever the hell was standing in it. But when I started moving forward, the figure in the road didn't step aside. I laid on the horn. A long, desperate blast that echoed out into the frozen night. The figure didn't flinch. It just stood there, arms spread now, like it was waiting to embrace the truck. I couldn't stop, not again. If I stopped, I don't think I'd start moving again. I pressed down on the throttle, felt the engine roar. The speedometer climbed. 20 miles per hour. 25. The figure grew larger in the windshield, close enough now that I could see the frost on its parka, the empty expression on its face. At the last second, it stepped aside. Not quickly, not in fear, just a casual sidestep, like it had known all along I wouldn't hit it, like this was all part of some game I didn't understand. I blasted past, trailer swaying, chains screaming. In the mirror, I saw it turn and watch me go. Saw the others on the shoulder turn as well, moving in perfect unison. Mile 246 appeared in my headlights. Then 245. Each one a small victory. Each one proof that I was moving forward, getting away from whatever that was, putting distance between me and mile 247. The CB stayed silent. No voices, no static, nothing. I tried switching channels, cycling through all 40, but every single one was dead. Like the radio had stopped working entirely, except I could still see the power light on, still see the channel numbers changing. I pushed the speed up to 50, which was insane in these conditions, but I didn't care anymore. The road was empty, The shoulders were clear, and I just needed to get somewhere with lights and people and proof that the world was still normal. Mile 240. The turnout was close now. Just a few more miles. I could see it in my mind, the wide pullout with the tall lights and the heated outhouse, and maybe, if I was lucky, another truck stopped there. Someone I could talk to. Someone who could tell me I was overtired, hallucinating, losing my mind in the cold. Mile 237. The snow was starting to ease. The wind had died down. Visibility was improving, and I could see further down the road now, maybe 50 feet instead of 20. Everything was getting better. Everything was going to be fine. Mile 247. My foot slammed the brake pedal before my brain even processed what I'd seen. The truck skidded, fishtailed, and came to a stop at an angle across both lanes. I sat there, breathing hard, staring at the mile marker in disbelief. I'd driven 10 miles. I'd watched every single marker. 246, 245, 244, all the way down to 237. I hadn't imagined it. I hadn't blinked and missed something. I'd counted every single one. But here I was, mile 247. Again. The CB crackled. Still there? Different voice this time. Older. Rough. The same one that had warned me earlier. I grabbed the mic, hands shaking. Yeah, I'm still here. What the hell is going on? You stopped, didn't you? I had to. There was someone in the road. There's always someone in the road, son. That's how it works. How what works? What is this? Static, long and empty. Then the voice came back, quieter now. You're in the loop. Mile 247. Some of us, we get stuck here, don't know why. Don't know how to get out. I've been here for, hell, I don't even know anymore. Time doesn't work right. That's impossible. Yeah, that's what I thought too. How do I get out? Silence, then barely audible. I don't know if you can. The transmission cut out. I sat there, engine idling, hands gripping the wheel so tight my fingers ached. The loop, mile 247. Stuck driving the same stretch of road over and over, watching the markers count down only to reset, seeing figures that weren't there, hearing voices that couldn't be real. I looked at my fuel gauge, 3/4 full. I'd started the night with a full tank. Either the gauge was broken or I hadn't been driving as long as I thought. Or time really didn't work right here. A tap on my window made me jump so hard I hit my head on the roof. I turned, flashlight already in hand, beam cutting through the darkness. A face stared back at me through the glass. Not my face this time. Someone else. A woman, maybe 50, with gray hair and tired eyes. She was wearing a parka, hood down, and her lips were moving. I couldn't hear what she was saying. The wind had picked up again, and the glass was too thick, but I could read her lips well enough. Let me in. I shook my head, mouthing back, can't. She slapped the window with her palm, not angry, desperate. Please, let me in, I'm so cold. Every instinct told me not to open that door. Not after what I'd seen. Not after the figure with my face. But she looked real. She looked human. And if there was even a chance she was stuck out here like me, that she needed help. I reached for the door lock. Her face changed. The desperation vanished, replaced by that same empty expression I'd seen on my own face earlier. Her hand pressed against the glass, and I saw now that her fingers were wrong. Too long, too thin, like someone had stretched them out and forgotten to stop. I jerked my hand back from the lock. She smiled, that same mechanical, joyless smile, and stepped away from the truck. 3 more figures emerged from the darkness behind her, all wearing parkas, all with that same empty expression. They didn't approach. They just stood there in a line, watching. The CB crackled again, my own voice coming through the speaker. "You can't leave, Waylon. None of us can." I grabbed the mic, shouting now. "I'm not you. I'm not stuck here." "Not yet, but you stopped. And once you stop..." The transmission faded. I threw the mic down and jammed the truck into gear. The figures didn't move as I rolled forward. They just watched, heads turning in unison to follow my movement. Mile 246. I was counting them out loud now, shouting the numbers like a mantra. Proof that I was moving. Proof that I was getting away. The turnout appeared in the distance. Lights. Tall and bright and blessedly normal. I could see the outline of the outhouse, the parking area, even another truck sitting there with its running lights on. I wasn't alone. There was someone else here. Someone real. I pulled into the turnout fast, chains rattling, and came to a stop next to the other truck. It was a Peterbilt, older model with Montana plates. The engine was running, but the cab was dark. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped down, boots crunching on the packed snow. The cold hit me again, but I barely felt it now. I was too focused on the other truck, too desperate to find another human being. I walked around to the driver's side and shone my light up at the window. Empty, the cab was empty, engine running, heat on, but no driver. I tried the door. Locked. Behind me, I heard footsteps in the snow. I spun around, flashlight beam cutting wild arcs through the darkness. The turnout was empty. No figures, no movement, just my truck with its engine idling and the wind howling through the trees. The footsteps came again, closer this time, steady and rhythmic, crunching through the snow. I backed toward my truck, flashlight still sweeping. The beam caught something at the edge of the lot, a trail of footprints leading from the trees toward the outhouse. Fresh prints, barely filled with snow. They stopped at the outhouse door. I should have gotten in my truck and left. I should have driven until I'd ran out of fuel or hit Fairbanks or woke up from whatever nightmare this was. But I needed to know. I needed to see. I walked toward the outhouse, flashlight beam fixed on the door. It was one of those prefab concrete jobs, thick walls and a heavy door with a spring hinge, the kind that slams shut hard if you don't hold it. The door was open, just a crack. Darkness beyond. "Hello?" My voice sounded small and pathetic. "Anyone in there?" No answer. I pushed the door open wider, flashlight beam cutting inside. The outhouse was empty, just a toilet and a sink and a small heater mounted on the wall. But the footprints continued inside, crossing the concrete floor and stopping at the back wall. Stopping at the wall, not at the toilet, not at the sink, at a solid concrete wall with nowhere to go. I stepped inside, following the prints. They were clear and distinct, made by boots just like mine. I reached out and touched the wall where they ended. Solid. No hidden doors, no panels, nothing. Just cold concrete. The door slammed shut behind me. I spun around, heart hammering, and grabbed the handle. It turned, but the door didn't open. Something was holding it from the outside. I put my shoulder into it and pushed, felt it give slightly, then slam shut again. "Hey, let me out!" The CB in my truck crackled, loud enough that I could hear it even through the concrete walls. "Still there?" I threw my weight against the door. Once, twice. On the third try, it burst open and I stumbled out into the snow, flashlight falling from my hand. The turnout was different now. Both trucks were gone, mine and the Peterbilt. The lights were still on, but the parking area was empty. Just undisturbed snow and tire tracks that ended abruptly in the middle of the lot, like the trucks had simply vanished. I found my flashlight, hands numb now, and walked to where my truck had been parked. The tracks were there, clear as day. I could see where I'd pulled in, where I'd stepped down from the cab. But they just stopped, like someone had erased everything beyond a certain point. A sound made me turn, an engine, coming from the highway. I ran toward the entrance of the turnout, waving my flashlight, shouting. A truck appeared, headlights cutting through the snow, and I felt a surge of relief so strong it made my knees weak. Saved, someone real, someone who could help. The truck slowed as it approached, and I could see the driver's face through the windshield. My face, looking back at me with those same empty eyes. The truck rolled past without stopping, chains clanking, exhaust trailing white in the cold air. I watched it disappear down the highway, heading south toward mile 246. The CB crackled somewhere in the distance. My voice, repeating the same question I'd heard a dozen times tonight. Still there? I looked down at my hands. They were shaking. Not from cold. From something else. Something worse. I walked back to the spot where my truck had been, following my own footprints in the snow. They led to the edge of the parking area, then stopped, right at the point where the tire tracks ended. I looked up at the mile marker next to the turnout. Mile 247. I'd never left at all. I stood in the empty turnout for what felt like hours, watching my breath fog in the freezing air, trying to understand what had just happened. My truck was gone. The other truck was gone. But my footprints were still there in the snow, leading from where I'd parked to where I stood now, as real and solid as anything I'd ever seen. The cold was starting to seep through my jacket now, a deep ache that spread from my fingers up through my arms. I'd been outside too long without shelter. That was dangerous. That was how people died up here. You get disoriented, you wander away from your vehicle, and they find you 3 days later frozen solid in a ditch. Except I hadn't wandered away. My truck had disappeared. I walked back to the outhouse, the only structure still standing. The footprints I'd followed earlier were gone now, covered by fresh snow. Inside, the heater was still running, putting out a weak stream of warm air. I stood in front of it, hands extended, trying to get feeling back into my fingers. Think, Waylon, think it through. Option 1. I was hallucinating. Carbon monoxide leak in the cab, maybe. Odorless, colorless, makes you see things that aren't there. Except I'd been outside for the last 20 minutes, breathing clean air, and nothing had changed. Option 2. I'd fallen asleep at the wheel somewhere back around mile 260, crashed into a ditch, and was now unconscious and dreaming all of this while slowly freezing to death. That would explain the repetition, the impossible geography, the figure with my face. Dreams didn't follow logic. Option 3. Something else. Something I didn't have words for. I pushed that thought away and focused on immediate survival. No truck meant no shelter, no heat, no CB radio. The outhouse would keep me alive for a while, but not long. The heater was electric, running off the turnout's power, but if the temperature dropped any lower, it wouldn't be enough. I needed to flag down another driver, get a ride to the next town, call for help. I stepped back outside and walked to the highway entrance. The road stretched in both directions, empty and white under the falling snow. No headlights, no sound except the wind. I'd wait. Someone would come eventually. This was a major highway, not some abandoned logging road. Trucks ran this route every night, carrying freight up and down the state. Someone would stop. Someone would help. I checked my watch. 3:47 a.m. I looked away, then looked back. 3:47 a.m. I counted to 60 in my head, watched the second hand sweep around the face. When I checked again, it still read 3:47. I tapped the crystal. The second hand was moving normally, ticking away, but the minute hand stayed frozen in place. My watch had stopped. Or time had. I wasn't sure which possibility scared me more. Movement caught my eye. Down the highway coming from the north, headlights. I stepped into the middle of the road, waving my arms. The lights grew closer, resolving into a pickup truck with a plow blade mounted on the front. Not ideal, but better than nothing. I kept waving, and the truck slowed, engine rumbling as it pulled to a stop about 10 feet away. The driver's window rolled down. A man leaned out, maybe 60 years old, with a grizzled beard and a stained baseball cap pulled low. He looked me up and down, expression unreadable. "You broke down?" "Yeah," I said, relief flooding through me. "Well, no, it's complicated. I'm a trucker. I pulled in here about 30 minutes ago, and when I came out of the outhouse, my rig was gone." The man's expression didn't change. "Gone? Vanished? Like it was never there?" He studied me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "You at mile 247? The question made my blood run cold. "How did you know that?" "Because you're not the first." He jerked his thumb toward the passenger seat. "Get in. We need to talk." I didn't hesitate. I climbed into the cab, grateful for the blast of heat coming from the vents. The interior smelled like diesel fuel and old coffee. Tools rattled in the back seat. The man put the truck in gear and rolled forward, back onto the highway. South, toward mile 247. "Wait," I said. "We're going the wrong way. Fairbanks is north." "Can't go north," he said. "Not from here. Road only goes one direction." "That doesn't make sense." "Nothing about this place makes sense." He glanced at me. "Name's Cody Brannigan. I'm a mechanic out of Glen Allen, or I was anyway. Been stuck on this stretch for longer than I care to think about." "Stuck? What do you mean, stuck?" "Same as you. Came through here 3 weeks ago, or maybe 3 months, hard to say. Saw something in the road, stopped to check it out, and haven't been able to leave since. Every time I try to drive north, I end up back at 247. Every time I try to go south, same thing. Just keeps looping." I stared at him, trying to process what he was saying. "That's impossible." "Yeah," he smiled, but there was no humor in it. That's what I thought too. We drove in silence for a minute. I watched the mile markers tick past. 246, 245, 244, all the way down to 238. Then 247 appeared in the headlights again. Cody didn't seem surprised. He just kept driving, expression neutral, like this was normal. "How many of us are there?" I asked. "Hard to say. I've seen maybe a dozen different people. Some of them last a few days, then they're gone. Some stick around longer. There's one guy says he's been here for years, but I don't know if I believe him. Time doesn't work right. You can't trust your memory." "What about those figures? The ones in the parkas?" Cody's hands tightened on the wheel. "You saw them?" "Yeah. One of them had my face. That means you're in deep. That's when you know you're not getting out." He glanced at me again. "Did you talk to it?" "No, I mean I heard it on the CB, but I didn't talk to it." "Good, don't. They're not us, even though they look like us. They're something else, something that's been here longer than any of us." We passed another figure on the shoulder. Different parka this time, red instead of blue. It turned to watch us go by, and I caught a glimpse of its face. Not mine, someone else's. But the eyes were the same, empty and cold. "What do they want?" I asked. "Don't know. Maybe nothing. Maybe they're just part of the loop, same as us. Or maybe they're what's keeping us here. There has to be a way out." Cody was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "There's a lodge. About 6 miles south of 247, if you can call anything here south. Old hunting lodge, been abandoned for years. Guy named Hollis Everhart runs it now. or used to. He knows more about this place than anyone else I've met. If there's a way out, he'd know. Take me there. Can't. You have to find it yourself. That's part of the rules. What rules? The rules of the loop. You can't be let out. You have to choose to leave. Otherwise, you just end up back at 247. He pulled the truck over to the shoulder and put it into park. This is as far as I can take you. I looked out at the empty highway. No lights, no signs, nothing to indicate where the lodge might be. How am I supposed to find it? Watch for the cairn. Stack of rocks on the right side, about chest high. Road's not marked, but you'll see it if you're looking. He reached across and opened my door. Good luck. I climbed out, cold air hitting me like a punch. Wait, what if I don't find it? Cody looked at me through the open door. Then you end up like the rest of us, driving in circles until you forget why you started. He pulled the door shut and drove away, taillights fading into the snow. I stood there for a moment, then started walking. South, following the white line painted on the edge of the road. The snow was getting heavier again, and the wind cut through my jacket like it wasn't there. I kept my head down, watching for the cairn Cody had mentioned. Mile 246. The numbers counted down, and I kept walking, boots crunching on the packed snow. My fingers were numb again, and my face felt frozen, but I didn't stop. I couldn't. If I stopped, I'd end up back at 247. That was the pattern. That was the trap. A sound made me look up. Engine noise coming from behind me. I turned and saw headlights approaching fast. A truck, big one, running without chains. It was moving too fast for the conditions, fishtailing slightly as it bore down on me. I stepped off the road onto the shoulder and watched it pass. It was my truck, my Freightliner, with my load of plywood pallets still strapped to the trailer. And behind the wheel, barely visible through the glare of the headlights, was me. The truck didn't slow. It just kept going, heading south, leaving me standing on the side of the road. I watched until the taillights disappeared, then turned and kept walking. Mile 243. The cairn appeared on my right. Exactly like Cody had described, a stack of rocks about chest high, arranged in a rough pyramid. Behind it, barely visible through the snow, was a narrow road cutting off into the trees. I took the turn, leaving the highway behind. The road was unpaved, just packed snow and gravel, winding through stands of black spruce and white birch. No tire tracks, no footprints, nothing to indicate anyone had used it recently. After about a quarter mile, the trees opened up and I saw the lodge. It was bigger than I'd expected. 2 stories with a steep roof and a wide porch running along the front. Lights burned in the windows, warm and yellow, and smoke curled from the chimney. I climbed the steps to the porch and knocked on the door. No answer. I tried again, harder this time, and the door swung open on its own, revealing a large room with a stone fireplace and rough-hewn furniture. "Hello," I called out. A man emerged from a doorway at the back, tall and thin, with silver hair and sharp eyes. He looked me over the same way Cody had, measuring something I couldn't see. "You must be Waylon," he said. "I've been expecting you. How do you know my name?" "Because you're not the first version of you I've met." He gestured toward the fireplace. "Come in. Warm yourself. We need to talk about what happens next." I stepped inside, and the door swung shut behind me. The warmth from the fire felt incredible after the cold outside, but something about this place made my skin crawl. The furniture was wrong somehow. Too clean for an abandoned lodge, too precisely arranged. And the smell, underneath the wood smoke and coffee, was something else, something metallic and cold. "Are you Hollis Everhart?" I asked. "I am, or I was. Hard to say anymore." He poured 2 cups of coffee from a pot on the hearth and handed me one. "Sit down. You're going to want to be sitting for this." I took the cup, but didn't drink. "Cody said you know how to get out of the loop." "I do." Hollis settled into a chair across from me. "But you're not going to like the answer. Try me. You can't get out. Not the way you're thinking. The loop isn't something that can be broken or escaped. It's a place, a real place, with its own geography and rules. Mile 247 is the center, and everything radiates out from there in patterns. Some people can navigate those patterns, most can't. That doesn't make sense. Roads don't work that way. This one does." He took a sip of coffee. "The question you need to ask yourself is why you stopped. Because everyone who ends up here stopped for something. A figure in the road, a broken down car, a voice on the radio. Something made them stop, and once they did, they couldn't start again. Not really." I thought about the figure with my face, standing in the middle of the road. About how close I'd come to hitting it. About the choice I'd made to swerve instead. "I thought I saw someone who needed help," I said. "And did they? No, it wasn't even real." Hollis nodded. "That's the trap. This place, whatever it is, it uses our better instincts against us. Makes us stop when we should keep driving. And once we stop," he gestured around the room, "we end up here. So what do? You make a choice. You can stay here at the lodge where it's warm and safe. Or you can go back out there and keep driving. Keep trying to find the edge of the loop. And if I do that, you'll end up back at 247, again and again, until you become one of those figures on the side of the road waiting for the next driver to stop." He leaned forward. "Or you stay here with me, and maybe eventually you figure out how to live with it." I set the coffee cup down, hands shaking. There has to be another option. There isn't. I've been here longer than anyone. I've tried everything. The only constant is mile 247, and the only choice is whether you keep driving or let yourself rest. I stood up, legs unsteady. The warmth from the fire had made me drowsy, and I realized I hadn't slept in how long? Time didn't work right here. I couldn't remember. "I need to think," I said. "Take your time. You have plenty of it." Hollis leaned back in his chair. "One way or another." I walked to the window and looked out at the snow falling in the darkness. Somewhere out there was the highway, and mile 247, and my truck driving in endless circles with my own face behind the wheel. And somewhere, maybe, was a way home. I don't know how long I stood at that window, watching the snow fall. Could have been minutes. Could have been hours. My watch still read 3:47, and the light outside never changed. Just that same dim pre-dawn darkness, frozen in place like everything else. Behind me, I could hear Hollis moving around the lodge. The creak of floorboards, the clink of a cup being set down. Normal sounds. The kind that should have been comforting but somehow made everything worse. Because they were too normal. Too careful. Like someone performing the motions of being human without quite remembering why. "I had a wife," I said, still looking out the window. "Back before all this. She died 5 years ago. Cancer. I kept driving after that because I didn't know what else to do. Didn't know how to live in a house that was too quiet, too empty." Hollis didn't respond, but I felt him listening. Part of me wondered if I'd been in a loop even before this. Just driving the same routes, stopping at the same truck stops, having the same conversations with the same dispatchers, going through the motions. I turned to face him. Maybe that's why I'm here. Maybe I was already stuck, and this is just the first time I noticed. "Maybe," Hollis said quietly. "Or maybe this place finds people like us, people who are already a little bit lost. How long have you really been here? He looked at me for a long moment. I don't remember anymore. Long enough that the details don't matter. I remember arriving, remember thinking I'd just rest for one night, then head back out in the morning. But morning never came. Just more darkness, more snow, and eventually I stopped counting the days. Do you ever see other people? Besides the ones who end up here? Sometimes. Shadows, mostly. People who might have been here before me or might have been here after. Time doesn't run straight here. It circles, like the road. He stood up and walked to a cabinet, pulling out a worn map. Here, I'll show you something. He spread the map on the table. It was a highway map of Alaska, the kind you'd pick up at a gas station. But someone had marked it up. Red pen, tracing loops and spirals around mile 247. Mathematical notations in the margins that I didn't understand. Every person who ends up here makes the same mistake, Hollis said, finger tracing one of the loops. They think they can logic their way out. They count the miles, watch the markers, try to find the pattern. But the pattern isn't mathematical. It's... He paused, searching for words. It's emotional. It's about the moment you stopped, about what you were feeling when you decided to help instead of drive past. So, what? I'm being punished for trying to do the right thing? No, you're trapped by it. There's a difference. He looked up at me. What did you feel when you saw that figure in the road? The one that looked like you? I thought back to that moment. The figure standing motionless in the headlights. The empty eyes. The mechanical smile. Recognition, I said finally. Not just because it looked like me, but because I understood what it was doing. Standing in the road, waiting for someone to stop. Same thing I'd been doing for 5 years. Just waiting. Not for help. Just waiting. Hollis nodded slowly. Then maybe you understand more than you think. A sound outside made us both turn. An engine close by. I went to the window and looked out. My truck was parked in front of the lodge, engine running, headlights cutting through the snow. The driver's side door hung open. That's not possible, I said. I saw it drive past me on the highway. There's more than one version of you here now, Hollis said. The one who's still driving. The one who stopped at the turnout. The one who came to the lodge. They're all real, and they're all you, and they're all stuck in their own version of the same loop. I stared at the truck. My truck. Sitting there idling, waiting for me to climb back in and keep driving, back to 247, back to the beginning. What happens if I get in? You'll drive. You'll pass the markers, count them down, think you're making progress, and then you'll end up back at 247, and you'll do it again. Just like you have been doing. Just like you'll keep doing. Forever. Until you forget why you started. Then you become one of them, one of the figures on the side of the road. He touched my shoulder. Or you stay here, with me. It's not much, but it's stable. It doesn't change, and after long enough, that starts to feel like something. I pulled away from his hand and walked towards the door. There has to be a way out. There has to be. Waylon. But I was already outside, boots crunching in the snow, heading for the truck. The cold hit me hard, but I barely felt it. I was focused on the open door, the warm cab, the familiar seat where I'd spent so many years of my life. I climbed in and pulled the door shut. The heater was running full blast, and my coffee cup was still in the holder, steam rising from it like I'd just poured it. The CB crackled with static. I grabbed the mic. This is Waylon Trask. Is anyone out there? Anyone real? The static continued for a moment. Then faintly, still there? I threw the mic down and put the truck in gear. The lodge was behind me now, lights fading in the mirror. I rolled back onto the narrow road, through the trees, until I reached the highway. Mile 244. I turned south and pressed down on the throttle. The engine roared, chains singing against the ice. I pushed it up to 60, which was insane in these conditions, but I didn't care anymore. I just needed to move. Needed to feel like I was going somewhere, anywhere except back to 247. Mile 243. The numbers counted down, each one a small victory. I was doing it. I was breaking the pattern. I just had to keep going. Keep the speed up. Don't stop for anything. A figure stepped into the road. Not slowly, not deliberately. It just appeared directly in my path, so close I didn't have time to react. I slammed the brakes and the truck went into a skid, trailer whipping sideways. I fought the wheel, trying to straighten out, but the weight was wrong and the ice was too slick. The truck tipped. Not violently, almost gently, like it was lying down to rest. I felt the world rotate, felt gravity shift, and then I was hanging in the straps as the cab settled on its side with a grinding crunch of metal and glass. For a moment, everything was quiet. Just the tick of the engine cooling and the hiss of air escaping from somewhere. I hung there in the straps, trying to process what had happened. The windshield was cracked but not shattered. I could see the road through it, tilted at a 90-degree angle, and standing there looking down at me through the glass was the figure. My face, my empty eyes. It crouched down, head tilted, studying me like I was something in a museum. Then it reached out and tapped the glass with one finger. 3 times, slow and deliberate. Tap, tap, tap. The CB crackled to life, even though the truck was on its side and shouldn't have had power. "Still there?" My own voice coming through the speaker. But this time, there was something else underneath it. An echo. Multiple voices layered together, all asking the same question. "Still there? Still there? Still there?" I reached for my seatbelt, fingers fumbling with the release. I needed to get out, needed to. The figure stood up and walked away. Not back down the highway, off into the snow, into the darkness between the trees. And as it walked, I saw others join it. 12 figures, then 24, all wearing dark parkas, all moving in perfect unison. They walked until the darkness swallowed them, and then they were gone. I got the seatbelt unbuckled and kicked out the windshield. The cold air rushed in, but I barely noticed. I climbed out onto the side of the truck and stood there, looking at the empty highway. No tire tracks except my own. No skid marks, just pristine snow and that same endless darkness. And ahead, barely visible in the distance, a green reflective mile marker. Mile 247. I jumped down from the truck and started walking. Not toward the marker, away from it. Due east, off the highway, into the trees. I'd walk until I found something. A house, a town, another road, anything that wasn't part of this loop. The trees closed around me, branches heavy with snow. My breath came in ragged gasps, and my boots punched through the crust with each step. I kept going, pushing through drifts that came up to my knees, using tree trunks to pull myself forward. Behind me, I heard an engine. Then another, then a dozen engines, all running in perfect synchronization. I didn't look back. I pushed deeper into the woods, the sound of the engines fading. Or maybe not fading, maybe I was just getting used to them. After a while, I couldn't tell the difference. The trees started to thin. I could see a clearing ahead, and beyond it, something tall and reflective. A mile marker, mile 247. I stopped walking. My legs gave out, and I sank into the snow, back against a tree. Around me, the woods were silent, except for my own breathing and the distant rumble of engines that never quite went away. I pulled out my phone. No signal, as expected, but I opened the camera anyway and took a picture of myself. I don't know why. Maybe to prove I was still real, still here. The preview showed me sitting in the snow, back against a tree, but in the background, barely visible in the darkness, were figures, dozens of them, all wearing dark parkas, all standing perfectly still, all watching me. I closed my eyes, too tired to be afraid anymore, too tired to keep fighting. The cold was seeping in deep now, into my bones, into my thoughts. It would be easy to just rest here, just for a minute, just until... Waylon. I opened my eyes. Cody Brannigan stood in front of me, hands in his pockets, breath fogging in the cold. "You can't stay here," he said. "If you fall asleep, you'll become one of them." I don't care anymore. Yeah, that's what they all say. He reached down and pulled me to my feet. "Come on, back to the lodge. It's the only safe place. The lodge is part of the trap. Everything here is part of the trap, but at least there it's warm." He started walking, not waiting to see if I'd follow. I followed. We walked in silence through the trees, and eventually the lodge appeared through the snow. Lights still burning. Smoke still rising from the chimney. Hollis stood on the porch, watching us approach. "Welcome back," he said quietly. I climbed the steps, each one feeling heavier than the last. Inside, the fire was still burning, my coffee cup still on the table where I'd left it, like I'd never left at all. "How many times have I done this?" I asked. Hollis looked at Cody. Cody looked at the floor. "Enough," Hollis said finally. "You've tried leaving enough times that you should understand by now. There's no exit, there's only here." I sank into the chair by the fire. On the table, my phone showed 37 missed calls from a number I didn't recognize. I opened the call log. All from the same number. All from the same timestamp. 3:47 a.m. I pressed play on the most recent voicemail. Static. Then, faintly, my own voice. "Still there?" I set the phone down. I had a delivery to make, Anchorage. Plywood and insulation. Someone's waiting for that load. "No one's waiting," Cody said softly. "Not anymore." Outside, through the window, I could see trucks rolling past on the highway. My truck, over and over, heading south toward mile 247. Different versions of me behind each wheel, all making the same choices, all ending up in the same place. I stood up and walked to the window, pressing my hand against the glass. It was cold, so cold it burned. "What if I just start walking?" I asked. "Not on the road, not in the woods. Just pick a direction and walk until I drop." "Then you drop," Hollis said. "And when you wake up, you'll be back in your truck at mile 247, and we'll have this conversation again." How many times have we had this conversation? Neither of them answered. I watched the trucks roll past, watched myself drive by again and again, an endless procession of Wayland Trasks, all trapped in the same loop, all thinking they were the first, the only, the real one. The CB on the mantle crackled to life, even though it wasn't connected to anything. "Breaker, breaker. This is Wayland Trask. Southbound Richardson Highway, mile 247. Anyone out there?" My voice, from when I first called for help, from the beginning of all this. "This is Wayland Trask, mile 247. I need assistance, there's something in the road." The same words I'd said, the same plea, and underneath it, barely audible, a chorus of other voices, other drivers, all calling from mile 247, all asking for help that would never come. I walked to the door and put my hand on the knob. "Don't," Hollis said. "You know what happens." "Yeah," I said. "I do." I opened the door and stepped out into the cold. The trucks were still passing, an endless stream of headlights cutting through the snow. I walked down from the porch and stood at the edge of the highway. A truck approached, my truck. I stepped into the road and raised my hand. The truck slowed, stopped. The driver's window rolled down and I looked up at my own face staring back at me with frightened eyes. "You need help?" I asked, my voice sounding strange in my own ears. The me in the truck stared down, mouth open, trying to form words. "There's someone in the road," he finally managed. "Did you see them?" "Yeah," I said. "I saw them." "Who are they?" I looked down at my hands. They were too pale, too thin. When had that happened? "We are," I said quietly. The truck door slammed. The engine roared. The Emmy inside gunned it, trying to get away, trying to escape. I watched the taillights fade into the distance, knowing exactly where they were headed. Mile 247. I turned and walked back toward the lodge. But when I reached the porch, I stopped. The door was closed, and through the window I could see Hollis and Cody sitting by the fire, talking to someone in my chair. Someone who looked exactly like me. I raised my hand to knock, but stopped. Behind me, on the highway, another truck was approaching. I could hear the chains, could hear the engine. I stepped off the porch and walked toward the road. The snow fell heavier now, and the cold didn't bother me anymore. I stood at the edge of the highway, hands in my pockets, and waited. The truck's headlights swept over me. I raised my hand. The truck began to slow. My name is Nolan Fitch, and I've been hauling freight through the Yukon for 8 years. Long enough to know which routes to take and which ones to avoid. Long enough to know that when the weather turns bad up here, you don't take chances. You follow the rules, you trust your equipment, and you never, ever take shortcuts through closed roads. But sometimes the choice gets made for you. It was late February, and I was running a load of mining equipment from Whitehorse down to Watson Lake. Standard run, nothing complicated. The forecast called for light snow, maybe some wind, but nothing I hadn't dealt with 100 times before. I left Whitehorse at 6 p.m., planning to make Watson Lake by 4 in the morning with a fuel stop somewhere in between. The first 2 hours went smooth. The Alaska highway was clear, traffic was light, and my rig was running like a dream. I had the heat cranked, a thermos of coffee in the cup holder, and a podcast playing through the speakers. Normal night. The kind that makes you forget how dangerous these roads can be when conditions change. The snow started around mile 80. Just a few flakes at first, dancing in the headlights, nothing to worry about. But within 20 minutes, it had turned into a full squall. Visibility dropped to maybe 30 feet, and the wind was picking up, buffeting the trailer hard enough that I had to keep both hands on the wheel. I slowed to 40, then 35, watching the road carefully. The highway had good shoulders here, but in weather like this, you couldn't see them until you were already halfway into the ditch. I kept my eyes on the reflectors, using them as a guide, and tried to ignore the way the wind made the whole rig shudder with each gust. That's when I saw the flares. Bright orange flames set up in a line across both lanes, creating a wall of light in the darkness. Behind them, I could make out the shape of a vehicle, lights flashing. I eased off the throttle and brought the rig to a stop about 50 feet back, hazards on. A figure emerged from behind the vehicle, walking toward me with a flashlight. As they got closer, I could see it was a state patrol officer, parka zipped up tight against the wind, face barely visible under the hood. I rolled down my window a crack, letting in a blast of freezing air. "Evening, officer, what's the situation?" "Highway's closed." Her voice was muffled by the wind. "Avalanche risk ahead. They're doing controlled blasting at Drum Peak, won't be clear until morning." I checked my watch, 8:45 p.m. "How far back is the last turnoff?" "About 60 miles. You'll have to head back to the junction and take the northern route through. That adds 4 hours to my run," I interrupted. "I've got a schedule to keep." She looked up at me, eyes hard. "Then you're going to miss your schedule. Roads closed. No exceptions." I sat there for a moment, engine idling, watching the snow pile up on my hood. 4 extra hours meant I'd be late delivering, which meant penalty fees, which meant my dispatcher would be on my ass for a week. But you don't argue with highway patrol, especially not up here where they can leave you stranded if you piss them off. "Copy that," I said. "I'll turn around." She nodded and stepped back, waving me off. I put the truck in reverse, found a wide spot in the road, and executed a 3-point turn that took 5 minutes and way too much space. By the time I got straightened out and heading north, the patrol vehicle was already disappearing in my mirror, swallowed by the snow. I drove back toward the junction, coffee going cold in my cup, mentally calculating how late I was going to be. The northern route was longer and slower, winding through mountain passes that added elevation and reduced speed limits. In good weather, it was manageable. In this, it was going to be a nightmare. The junction appeared after 45 minutes. A simple Y in the road, one branch continuing north, the other cutting west toward the interior. I was about to take the northern route when I saw the sign. "Road closed. Avalanche control." Orange barriers blocked the turn, the same kind the patrol officer had set up on the main highway. But there was no vehicle here, no officer, just the barriers and the sign and the empty road beyond. I stopped the truck and stared at the barriers, my mind trying to process what I was seeing. Both routes were closed, the main highway and the detour, which meant I was stuck here, in the middle of nowhere, with no way forward and no way around. I grabbed my CB and switched to Channel 19. "This is Nolan Fitch, northbound on the Alaska Highway near the junction. Anyone got information on road closures? Both routes showing blocked." Static. I waited 30 seconds, then tried again. "Any traffic near the Yukon Junction? This is Nolan looking for road status." "Come back." More static. Then, faintly, a voice broke through. "Nolan, this is Kira Drummond, State Patrol. You the truck I just turned around?" "That's me. I'm at the junction now, and the northern route is showing closed too. What's my option here?" Pause. I could hear the crackle of interference on her end. "Stand by, checking with dispatch." I waited, engine idling, watching the fuel gauge. I had maybe 3/4 of a tank, enough to make Watson Lake if I could get moving, but not enough to waste sitting here all night with the engine running. The CB crackled again. "Nolan, you still there?" "Yeah, I'm here." "Okay, bad news. The northern route is closed for the same reason, avalanche control. But there's another option, old tunnel road past Drum Peak. It's not on the main maps anymore, but it's technically open." "Why isn't it on the maps?" "Because it's been decommissioned. They stopped maintaining it 5 years ago, and it's rough, real rough. But it'll get you through to Watson Lake if you're careful." I thought about that. An unmaintained tunnel in the middle of a snowstorm, in the dark, with a full load. Every instinct told me it was a bad idea. How rough are we talking? Narrow. Single lane in places. No lighting. But the tunnel itself is solid, and the road surface is paved. It's just not recommended. But it's open. Technically. Look, it's your call. You can wait here until morning when the main highway opens. Or you can take the tunnel. I can't tell you which to do. I looked at my watch. If I waited until morning, I'd be 8 hours late. If I took the tunnel and it was as rough as she said, I might be 10 hours late, or I might damage the rig, or worse. But sitting here wasn't an option. "Where's the turnoff?" I asked. She gave me directions. About 3 miles south before the avalanche zone, there was an access road marked with a faded sign. Take that west for about 2 miles and I'd see the tunnel entrance. "Thanks for the info," I said. "I'll take my chances. Be careful in there. And Nolan, keep your radio on. If you run into trouble, call me. I'll be monitoring Channel 19. Copy that." I turned the truck around and headed south, back the way I'd come. The snow was heavier now, and the wind had picked up even more. I kept my speed low, eyes scanning for the turnoff. The access road appeared exactly where she'd said it would be. The sign was barely readable, half covered in snow and rust. Drum Peak Access, authorized vehicles only. No mention of a tunnel, no warning signs, just that one faded marker and a narrow road disappearing into the trees. I took the turn, feeling the rig jostle as I left the paved highway for gravel. The road was rougher than I'd expected, potholed and uneven, but passable, trees pressed close on both sides, their branches heavy with snow, creating a tunnel of darkness that my headlights barely penetrated. 2 miles felt like 10. The road twisted and climbed, forcing me to gear down and take it slow. My trailer swayed on the uneven surface, and I could hear the straps creaking as the load shifted slightly. Not dangerous yet, but something to watch. Then I saw it, the tunnel entrance. It was bigger than I'd expected, carved into the side of the mountain like a giant's mouth. Old concrete framing, stained with water damage and covered in moss. No lights. No signs except one. Tunnel closed, no entry. I stopped the truck about 20 feet from the entrance and stared at it. Closed. Kira had said it was open, technically open, but the sign clearly said otherwise. I grabbed the CB. "Kira, this is Nolan. I'm at the tunnel entrance and there's a sign saying it's closed." Long pause, then, "That's an old sign. They put it up when they decommissioned the route, but they never locked the gates. You should be able to drive through." "Should be?" "Look, I've had 2 other truckers use it in the last month. Both made it through fine. It's legal, just not recommended." I sat there, staring at the dark mouth of the tunnel. Every instinct I had was screaming at me to turn around, but the alternative was sitting in my truck all night, burning fuel, missing my delivery, and facing the consequences. I put the truck in gear and rolled forward. The tunnel swallowed my headlights like they were nothing. The darkness beyond was absolute, thick and heavy, pressing in from all sides. My high beams barely reached 50 feet, illuminating rough concrete walls that glistened with moisture. The road surface was paved but cracked, with potholes deep enough to see in the beam. I shifted into second gear and crept forward, watching the walls carefully. The tunnel was narrow, maybe 12 feet across, with barely a foot of clearance on either side of my trailer. I could hear the echo of my engine bouncing off the walls, a deep rumble that seemed to go on forever. The CB crackled. "Nolan, you in the tunnel?" "Yeah. Visibility is poor, but I'm moving." "Keep your speed low. There's a slight grade about halfway through, and the road surface gets worse. Should take you about 20 minutes to clear it." "Copy." I focused on driving, hands tight on the wheel, eyes flicking between the road ahead and my mirrors. The walls seemed to press closer the further I went, and I had to fight the urge to speed up, to get through this faster. Slow and steady. That was the only way. About 5 minutes in, I heard it. A sound, faint at first, almost lost under the rumble of the engine. Metallic, like chains dragging across concrete. I eased off the throttle and listened. The sound continued, rhythmic and steady, echoing through the tunnel from somewhere ahead. I grabbed the CB. "Kira, Do you know if there's maintenance going on in the tunnel? I'm hearing something up ahead. Static. No response. Kira, come back. Nothing. The CB was dead, just like it had been back at mile 247. No. Wrong thought. Wrong memory. That wasn't me. I shook my head, trying to focus. The sound was getting louder now. Closer. I slowed to a crawl, high beams straining against the darkness. Then I saw it. A shape barely visible in the distance. Something on the road ahead, blocking the way. I stopped the truck, engine idling, and stared. It looked like a vehicle, but the proportions were wrong. Too low, too wide, and it wasn't moving. I hit the air horn. The blast echoed through the tunnel like thunder, bouncing off the walls and ceiling. The shape didn't move. I grabbed my flashlight and climbed down from the cab, boots hitting the wet pavement with a splash. The cold air inside the tunnel was different from outside. Stale, old, like it had been trapped down here for years. I walked toward the shape, flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. As I got closer, the details resolved. It was a truck, or had been. Old, maybe from the 70s, sitting on flat tires with rust eating through the panels. The driver's door hung open, and the windshield was cracked and covered in grime. I shone my light inside. Empty. No driver, no cargo, just decay. Behind me, from somewhere deeper in the tunnel, I heard the sound again. Chains dragging across concrete. Getting closer, I turned. Flashlight sweeping the darkness. Nothing. Just wet walls and empty road. I backed toward my truck, heart hammering. The sound stopped. I climbed into the cab and locked the door, which felt ridiculous but necessary. Through the windshield, I could see the abandoned truck sitting there like a warning, like proof that not everyone made it through. The CB crackled to life. "Nolan?" Kira's voice, faint and distorted. "Nolan, can you hear me?" I grabbed the mic. "Yeah, I'm here. There's an abandoned truck in the tunnel. Looks like it's been here for years." "What?" "Old truck, 70s maybe. Just sitting here in the middle of the road. Did you know about this?" Long pause, then, "No, there shouldn't be anything in there. The tunnel was cleared before they closed it." "Well, there's something here now. Can you get around it?" I looked at the abandoned truck, measuring the space between it and the walls. Maybe, if I was careful and lucky. "I can try." "Be careful. And Nolan, if anything feels wrong, back out. Don't take risks." "Copy that." I ended the transmission and put the truck in gear. Slowly, carefully, I eased forward, angling to pass the abandoned truck on the left. My mirror cleared it by inches, and I held my breath as the trailer followed. A scraping sound made me wince, metal on metal. But then I was past, and the road ahead was clear. I picked up speed, eager to get out of this tunnel and back into open air. The grade Kira had mentioned appeared, a gentle slope downward, and I let gravity help me along. That's when I saw the lights. Behind me. In my mirror. 2 headlights getting closer. Someone else was in the tunnel. I watched the headlights in my mirror getting brighter as they closed the distance. My first thought was relief. Another driver, someone else who'd taken the tunnel route. Maybe someone local who knew the way through. But then I noticed something wrong. The lights weren't bouncing. When you drive through a tunnel like this, on rough pavement with potholes and cracks, your headlights move. They bob up and down, sweep side to side as you navigate around obstacles. These lights didn't. They stayed perfectly level, perfectly steady, like they were floating instead of attached to a vehicle. I pressed down on the throttle, picking up speed. The grade was steeper now, and my rig responded, rolling faster down the slope. I kept one eye on the road ahead and one on the mirror, watching those lights. They matched my speed exactly. When I accelerated, they accelerated. When I had to slow for a rough patch, they slowed too, maintaining the same distance, never closer, never farther. I grabbed the CB mic. "This is Nolan Fitch in the Drum Peak Tunnel. There's another vehicle behind me. Driver, if you can hear me, identify yourself." Static. "Vehicle behind me, flash your lights if you can hear this transmission." The lights in my mirror didn't change. Just that steady, unwavering glow. I tried Kira's channel. "Kira, you still monitoring?" Her voice came through, clearer now. "I'm here. What's your status?" "There's someone behind me in the tunnel. They're not responding to CB." "Behind you? That's not possible. You're the only vehicle I cleared through tonight." "Well, someone's here. I can see their headlights." Pause. I could hear the uncertainty in her voice when she spoke again. "Nolan, are you sure it's another vehicle? Could it be a reflection?" I looked at the mirror again. The lights were still there, steady and bright. "It's not a reflection. These are headlights. High beams, looks like." "Okay, stay calm. Keep moving forward. You should be hitting the halfway point soon, then it's all downgrade to the exit. How's your fuel?" I checked the gauge. Still 3/4 full. Same as it had been when I entered the tunnel, which didn't make sense. I'd been driving for at least 15 minutes. Should have burned through 1/8 of a tank by now. "Fuel's good," I said, deciding not to mention the gauge issue. "How much farther to the exit?" "Should be about 2 miles. You'll see a green emergency light on the ceiling when you're close. That's your signal that you're near the end." "Copy that." I clipped the mic back and focused on driving. The tunnel walls seemed to press closer now, the ceiling lower. Probably just my imagination, but it made my shoulders tense. I'd never been claustrophobic, but there was something about being this far underground, in the dark, with those lights following behind that made my chest feel tight. The sound started again, that metallic dragging, like chains being pulled across concrete. But this time it was louder, and it seemed to be coming from all around me. From the walls, from the ceiling, from the road itself. I slowed down, listening. The sound continued, rhythmic and deliberate. Not random, not natural. Like someone or something was dragging a heavy chain back and forth, back and forth. In the mirror, the headlights behind me slowed to match my speed. "Kira," I said into the CB, "I'm hearing something in here. Metallic sound, like chains." "Chains? Nolan, there's nothing in that tunnel. It's been sealed and empty for 5 years." "I'm telling you, I can hear it." "Could be your own chains, the ones on your tires. Sound echoes weird in tunnels." I listened carefully. My tire chains had a specific rhythm, a clinking that matched my speed. This was different, heavier, slower. And it didn't change when I changed speed. "It's not my chains," I said. Static. Then, "Nolan, I need you to stay focused. Keep your eyes on the road and keep moving. Don't stop for anything. You're almost through." The vehicle behind me. There is no vehicle behind you. I'm looking at the tunnel monitoring system right now. You're the only heat signature in there. I stared at the mirror. The lights were still there, bright and steady, impossible to miss. "Kira, I'm looking right at it. 2 headlights maybe 50 feet back." Long silence. When she spoke again, her voice was quieter. "Nolan, listen to me carefully. That tunnel has a history. Some drivers report seeing things that aren't there. Lights, shadows, sounds. It's disorienting. The lack of external reference points, the darkness, the echo. Your mind can play tricks. This isn't a trick. I know what I'm seeing. I believe that you're seeing something. But trust me when I tell you there's nothing behind you. The monitoring system doesn't lie. You're alone in there." I wanted to argue, but what was the point? Either she was wrong, or I was losing my mind. Neither option was comforting. I pressed down on the throttle, pushing my speed up to 40. The tunnel road was rough enough that anything faster felt dangerous, but I needed to get out of here. Needed to see daylight or streetlights or anything that wasn't this endless concrete darkness. The lights behind me matched my speed again. Still 50 feet back, still perfectly level. Then they started to get closer. Not quickly, just a slow, steady approach. 45 feet, 40, 35. I watched the distance shrink in my mirror, my hands tightening on the wheel. "They're getting closer," I said into the CB. "Nolan, there's nothing there. Focus on the road ahead. You should see the green light soon." 30 feet, 25. I could almost make out the shape of the vehicle now, or what I thought was a vehicle. The lights were too bright, washing out any details, but there was a mass behind them, dark and indistinct. 20 feet. The metallic sound grew louder, more insistent, like dozens of chains being dragged at once, all moving in rhythm. The whole tunnel seemed to vibrate with it. 15 feet. I slammed the throttle down, pushing the rig to 50. The tunnel road blurred beneath me, potholes jarring the cab so hard my teeth rattled. But the lights kept coming. 10 feet. Then they stopped. Just froze at that distance, no longer closing but not falling back either. Like they'd hit some invisible boundary and couldn't cross it. I kept my speed high, heart hammering, eyes flicking between the road and the mirror. The lights held their position, and slowly, very slowly, they started to fade. Not disappearing, just dimming, like someone was turning down the brightness. The sound faded with them. The chains grew quieter, more distant, until they were just a faint echo in the background. I saw the green light ahead, a small emergency fixture mounted on the ceiling, glowing softly in the darkness. Kira had said that was the signal. The exit was close. Relief flooded through me. I eased off the throttle slightly, bringing my speed back to a safer 40, and focused on the growing patch of lesser darkness ahead. The tunnel exit. Had to be. The CB crackled. "Nolan, you should be seeing the exit marker. You okay?" "Yeah," I said, my voice rough. "I see it, almost there." "Good. When you exit, there's a pullout about a quarter-mile down the road. Stop there and check your rig. Make sure everything's secure before you continue." "Will do." The exit appeared, a rectangle of slightly lighter darkness framed by the tunnel walls. I rolled toward it, every instinct screaming at me to floor it, to blast out into open air, but I kept my speed steady, controlled. I crossed the threshold, and the tunnel released me. Cold air hit my face through the window crack, fresh and clean and beautiful. I could see trees, snow, the actual sky, even though it was still dark and stormy. Real things, normal things. I pulled into the designated pullout and killed the engine, hands shaking as I released the wheel. For a long moment I just sat there, breathing hard, trying to process what had just happened. The tunnel entrance was behind me now, a dark mouth in the mountainside. I could see my tire tracks leading out of it, the only marks in the fresh snow. No other tracks. I grabbed my flashlight and climbed down from the cab, needing to move, to do something physical. The night air was freezing, maybe 20 below, but it felt good after the stale atmosphere of the tunnel. I walked around the rig, checking straps and tires, making sure nothing had come loose. Everything looked fine, better than fine. The load hadn't shifted at all, and the tires showed normal wear, like I'd just been on a regular highway instead of that rough tunnel road. I walked back toward the tunnel entrance, flashlight beam cutting through the snow. About 20 feet from the opening, I stopped. There were tire tracks, multiple sets, coming out of the tunnel and continuing down the road. Fresh tracks barely covered by the falling snow. But I was the only vehicle that had come through. Kira had confirmed it. The monitoring system had shown I was alone. I followed the tracks with my flashlight. They paralleled the road for about 30 feet, then veered off into the trees and disappeared. The CB in my truck crackled. I could hear it even from here, Kira's voice calling my name. I walked back and grabbed the mic. "I'm here." "You've been quiet. Everything okay?" "Yeah, just checking the rig." I hesitated. "Kira, when was the last time someone used this tunnel?" "Before tonight?" "About 3 weeks ago. A trucker named Grady McCall. Why?" "Did he report anything unusual?" Long pause. "He mentioned some strange sounds, and he thought he saw headlights behind him, but when he exited, there was no one there." "Why? Did something happen?" I looked back at the tunnel entrance. Dark and quiet now. Peaceful, almost. Like it was just a normal tunnel and not whatever I'd just experienced. "No," I said. "Nothing happened. Just echoes, like you said." "Good. Glad you made it through. You should hit Watson Lake in about 2 hours, if you keep your current pace. Thanks for the help. Stay safe out there." I clipped the mic and stood there for another moment staring at the tunnel. Then I climbed back in the cab, fired up the engine, and pulled back onto the road. The highway was empty. Snow fell steadily, and the wind pushed at my trailer, but it all felt normal. Real. I tried to settle into the rhythm of driving, to forget about the lights and the sounds, and those impossible tire tracks. About 10 miles down the road, my CB crackled again. Not Kira this time. A different voice. Male, rough, tired. "This is Grady McCall to any truck within range. If anyone can hear me, I need help. I'm stuck in the Drum Peak Tunnel and I can't find the exit. I've been driving for hours, and I keep ending up back at the same point. If anyone can hear me, please respond." My blood went cold. I grabbed the mic. "Grady, this is Nolan Fitch. I just came through that tunnel. The exit is about 2 miles in. You should see a green emergency light." Static. Then, "I've passed that light 6 times. Every time I drive through the exit, I end up back at the entrance. I'm trapped in here. That's not possible. I know what I'm seeing. I've been in this tunnel for 3 weeks. My fuel gauge hasn't moved. My watch stopped. And there's something else in here with me. Something that follows me every time I try to leave." I didn't respond. Couldn't. Because I'd seen those lights. I'd heard those chains. And some part of me, the part that had felt the wrongness of that tunnel, believed every word he was saying. "If you can hear me," Grady continued, voice breaking, "don't go back in there. Don't try to help me. Just keep driving and forget you ever heard this. Grady, I'm going to contact the patrol. They can send someone. They already tried. Kira sent a rescue team 2 weeks ago. They went into the tunnel and never came out. She didn't tell you that, did she?" I looked at the radio, mind racing. "No, she didn't. Because she's trying to forget, trying to pretend it didn't happen. But I'm still here, and so are they. We're all still here, driving in circles, and the only thing that keeps us company is whatever lives in this mountain." The transmission cut out. I tried to respond, tried to raise him again, but there was only static. I grabbed my phone and dialed Kira's number. She picked up on the second ring. "Nolan, what's wrong?" "I just heard from Grady McCall on the CB. He says he's trapped in the tunnel." Silence. Long and heavy. "Kira? That's not possible," she said finally. "Grady McCall died 3 weeks ago. His truck was found at the bottom of a ravine about 5 miles from the tunnel exit. He must have gone off the road in the storm. I just heard his voice. He was calling for help. Nolan, listen to me. You're tired. You've been driving all night. You went through a stressful situation in that tunnel, and your mind is playing tricks. Grady is dead. What you heard was probably another driver, or interference, or he knew about the rescue team you sent. The silence that followed told me everything I needed to know. There was no rescue team, she said quietly. I don't know where you got that idea, but no one went into that tunnel after Grady. We found his truck in the ravine, we recovered his body, and we closed the investigation. That's the truth. Then, why does the tunnel monitoring system show I was alone when I could clearly see headlights behind me? I don't know. Maybe the system is faulty. Maybe the tunnel has some kind of electromagnetic interference that affects equipment. Or maybe you were hallucinating from stress and fatigue. Pick whichever explanation makes you comfortable, but the facts are the facts. Grady is dead, there was no rescue team, and you made it through safely. I wanted to argue, wanted to demand answers. But what was the point? Either she was lying or she genuinely didn't know what was happening in that tunnel, and either way, I was out. I'd made it through and I wasn't going back. Okay, I said, thanks for your help tonight. Get some rest when you reach Watson Lake. You've earned it. She hung up. I set the phone down and focused on the road ahead, trying to ignore the cold feeling in my gut. The miles ticked by. 50 down the highway, 60, 70. The snow started to ease, and visibility improved. I could see the road stretching ahead, empty and normal. My CB crackled again. Nolan, Grady's voice, clearer this time. Don't look in your mirrors. I froze, hands on the wheel, eyes locked forward. There's something behind you. It followed you out of the tunnel. I can see it from in here. It's attached to your trailer now. That's not funny, I said into the mic. I'm not joking. Whatever lives in that tunnel, it doesn't let people leave. Not really. It follows them, watches them, and eventually it brings them back. Back where? To the tunnel. Where else? That's where it lives. That's where we all end up. I couldn't help it. I looked at my mirror. The road behind me was empty, just snow and darkness and my own tire tracks stretching back toward the tunnel. Nothing else. There's nothing there, I said. Not yet, but there will be. Check your fuel gauge. I looked down. The needle sat at 3/4 full. Exactly where it had been since I entered the tunnel. Hours ago. I should have burned through at least a 1/4 tank by now, maybe more. The tunnel doesn't let go, Grady said. You think you're out, you think you're free, but you're not. You're just in a different part of the loop. And sooner or later you'll end up back at the entrance and you'll go in again. And this time you won't come out. I'm not going back there. You will, they all do. I did, 3 times before I realized I couldn't escape. Now I'm just here, driving in circles, waiting for the next person to make the same mistake. The transmission cut out. I tried to raise him again, but the CB was dead, not even static, just silence. I drove for another hour in that silence, watching my fuel gauge stay frozen at 3/4, watching my odometer count up miles that didn't feel real. The landscape around me started to look familiar, too familiar. Then I saw the sign. Drum Peak Access, authorized vehicles only. The same sign I'd passed hours ago. The same turnoff. I kept driving, refusing to look at it, refusing to acknowledge it. But in my mirror, I could see the narrow road disappearing into the trees. Could see the tunnel entrance beyond, dark and waiting. My hands turned the wheel before I could stop them. The truck took the turn, tires crunching on gravel, heading back toward the access road, back toward the tunnel. I tried to straighten out, tried to correct the turn, but my hands wouldn't respond. They kept the wheel locked, kept the truck on course like they belonged to someone else. No, I said out loud. No, I'm not doing this. But I was. The truck rolled forward, through the trees, down the winding access road. And ahead, growing larger with each passing second, was the tunnel entrance. The sign read, Tunnel closed, no entry. I rolled right past it, into the darkness, into the concrete mouth that had been waiting for me to return. The headlights appeared in my mirror almost immediately, 50 feet back, steady and unwavering. The CB crackled. "Welcome back, Nolan," Grady said. "Now we can keep each other company." The darkness swallowed me whole for the second time. My headlights carved out a narrow tunnel within the tunnel, illuminating wet concrete walls that seemed closer than before. Narrower, like the mountain was slowly closing its throat around me. I tried the brakes. My foot pressed down, felt the pedal sink, but the truck didn't slow. We just kept rolling forward at a steady 30 miles per hour. Engine humming, transmission locked in a gear I hadn't selected. "What's happening?" I said into the CB, not sure if I was talking to Grady or to myself or to whatever was driving my truck. "Why can't I stop?" Grady's voice came through, crackling with static. "Because you're not driving anymore. None of us are. We're just passengers now. That's not possible." "You keep saying that. Hasn't been true yet, has it?" I grabbed the wheel and tried to turn it. Locked solid. Might as well have been welded in place. The truck continued forward, following the center line perfectly, navigating around the potholes I'd struggled with on my first pass. In my mirror, the headlights followed. Still 50 feet back. Still perfectly level. "How long have you been in here?" I asked. "I told you. 3 weeks. Or 3 months. Or 3 hours. Time doesn't work right. I've tried counting, tried keeping a log, but the numbers don't add up. Sometimes I'll drive for what feels like days, and when I check my watch only 5 minutes have passed. Other times I'll blink and lose hours. There has to be a way out." There was. For you. You found it, you drove through it, you made it to the other side. But then you came back. I didn't choose to come back. The truck turned on its own. That's what they all say. His voice was quiet, resigned. "But you're here now, and here is where you'll stay." I watched the concrete walls slide past, trying to think. There had to be a logical explanation. Carbon monoxide poisoning making me hallucinate. Some kind of magnetic field affecting my equipment and my brain. Hell, maybe I'd crashed hours ago and was dying in a ditch somewhere, dreaming all of this. But the cold metal of the steering wheel under my hands felt real. The rumble of the engine felt real. The fear coiling in my gut felt real. "Tell me about the lights," I said. "The headlights behind me. What are they?" Long pause. "I don't know. I've never seen the vehicle, only the lights. They follow everyone who enters. Maintain the same distance, never getting closer than 50 feet, never falling back. Just watching. Waiting. Waiting for what? For you to understand. Understand what? That you're not leaving." The tunnel stretched ahead, seemingly endless. I should have reached the abandoned truck by now, the one I'd passed on my first trip through. But the road was clear, just wet pavement and rough concrete walls. "Where's the old truck?" I asked. "The one that was blocking the road." "What old truck?" "70s model, rusted out, sitting right in the middle of the tunnel. I had to drive around it." Silence. Then, "Nolan, I've been through every inch of this tunnel. There's no abandoned truck. There's nothing but road and walls and darkness. I saw it. It was there. You saw what the tunnel wanted you to see. It shows people different things. For me, it's a rock slide that I can never quite climb over. For others, it's different obstacles. All of them impossible to pass, until suddenly they're not there anymore." I thought about that. The truck had been solid, real. I'd seen the rust, the flat tires, the open door. But if Grady was right, if the tunnel could make people see things. "What lives here?" I asked. "I don't know if it's alive in the way we understand it. It's more like the tunnel itself is aware. The mountain, the rock. Something old that was here long before they carved this road through it, and something that's going to be here long after we're gone. Mountains aren't alive. This one is, or something in it is, and it's hungry. The CB crackled with interference, and for a moment I heard something underneath Grady's voice. Other voices. Dozens of them, maybe more, all talking at once in a low murmur I couldn't quite make out. "How many others are in here?" I asked. "I don't know. I've heard at least 20 different voices on the CB. Some of them have been here longer than me. Some of them, I think they've been here since before the tunnel was built. Like they were always here, trapped in the mountain, and the tunnel just gave them a way to reach out." My fuel gauge still read 3/4 full. My odometer was counting up, but the numbers felt meaningless. According to it, I'd driven 12 miles since entering the tunnel the second time. But Kira had said the tunnel was only 4 miles long. The green emergency light appeared ahead, the same one I'd seen before, marking the exit. Hope surged through me. "I see the exit marker." "Yeah," Grady said quietly. "You will. About every 20 minutes. "What?" "Keep driving. You'll see." I rolled toward the light, watching it grow closer. The tunnel walls seemed to widen slightly, and I could see the exit ahead. That rectangle of lesser darkness, promising freedom. The truck rolled through it, and immediately I was staring at the tunnel entrance again. The sign reading "Tunnel Closed. No entry." The same entrance I'd passed through twice now. "No," I said. "No, that's not possible." "It's a loop," Grady said. "The tunnel connects to itself. Enter and exit are the same place. You'll drive 4 miles and end up right back where you started." I watched as my truck rolled forward, back into the tunnel, beginning the cycle again. The headlights in my mirror followed. "How do we break it?" I asked. "We don't. That's what I've been trying to tell you. This isn't a puzzle with a solution. It's not a trap you can escape from with the right trick. It's just a place that doesn't follow the rules. And once you're in it, you're part of it." The abandoned truck appeared ahead, blocking the road. The same rust, the same flat tires, the same open door. I knew it wasn't real. Knew it was just something the tunnel was showing me. But my truck slowed anyway, navigating around it with precision I wasn't providing. "I'm seeing the abandoned truck again," I said. "Your obstacle. Mine is different. But we're in the same place, just experiencing it differently. Like we're in parallel versions of the same tunnel. That doesn't make sense. Nothing about this makes sense, but here we are." I tried the door handle. Locked. I hadn't locked it, but it was locked now. Tried the window controls. Dead. The CB worked, and I could see my gauges, but everything else was frozen. The truck rolled on, past the abandoned vehicle, deeper into the tunnel. The walls pressed closer, and I realized they actually were closer. The tunnel was narrowing. What had been 12 feet across was now maybe 10. The clearance on either side of my trailer was shrinking. "It's getting narrower," I said. "For you, maybe. For me, it's always the same width, but I've heard others say the same thing. The tunnel adapts to each person, finds what scares them and amplifies it. I'm not scared of tight spaces. Then why is the tunnel getting narrower?" I didn't have an answer for that. The CB crackled, and a new voice broke through. Female, younger than Grady, with an accent I couldn't place. "Is someone else here? Please, if you can hear me, I need help. My name is..." Static swallowed the name, and I've been trapped for 2 days. My truck won't start, and I can't get the doors open. If anyone can hear me, please respond. I grabbed the mic. "I can hear you. This is Nolan Fitch. Where are you?" "I'm in the tunnel, the Drum Peak tunnel. I broke down, and now I can't get out." "Can you see me?" "I have my hazard lights on." I scanned the road ahead. No lights except my own headlights and the ever-present pair in my mirror. I don't see you. What's your location? I'm right here. Her voice rose in panic. Oh God, there's something outside my truck. Something moving in the shadows. Please, you have to help me. Stay calm. I'm coming. Just tell me where you are. The transmission cut out, replaced by static and then silence. Hello? I tried. Can you still hear me? Grady's voice returned. She's gone. They don't last long, the new ones. Either they figure out how to settle into the rhythm, or they panic and disappear. Disappear where? I don't know. Deeper, maybe. There's layers to this place. The tunnel is just the top layer, the part we can see. But there's something underneath. Something that the tunnel connects to. The green emergency light appeared again. I watched it approach. Watched the exit materialize ahead, and this time I tried to fight it. Tried to force the wheel to turn, to break the pattern somehow. Nothing. The truck rolled through the exit and immediately faced the entrance again. Another loop completed. How many times have you done this? I asked Grady. I stopped counting at 300. That was, I don't know how long ago. 300 loops. At 4 miles per loop, that was 1,200 miles. Driven in circles, going nowhere with no way to stop. I looked at my fuel gauge, still 3/4 full. Our trucks don't need fuel in here, Grady said, like he'd read my mind. They don't need oil or coolant or tires that aren't worn down to nothing. They just keep running, forever. What about us? Do we need food, water? I don't know. I haven't felt hungry since the first day. Haven't felt thirsty. Haven't needed to sleep, although sometimes I drift into something like sleep. When I wake up, the truck is still driving, and nothing has changed. The headlights in my mirror flickered. Just once. A momentary dimming, like someone had passed in front of them. Did you see that? I asked. See what? The lights behind me. They flickered. They've never flickered for me. They just stay constant. I watched the mirror carefully. The lights held steady for a moment, then flickered again. Longer this time. And in that moment of darkness, I saw something. A shape, standing in the road between my truck and the following headlights. Too tall to be human, too thin, with proportions that didn't make sense. The lights came back, and the shape was gone. There's something in the road, I said, voice tight. There's always something in the road. The tunnel is full of things that aren't quite there and aren't quite gone. You'll get used to seeing them. I don't want to get used to this. You don't have a choice. The abandoned truck appeared again, and this time I noticed something different. The driver's door was closed. I was sure it had been opened before. Sure I'd seen it hanging on its hinges. But now it was closed. And as I drove past, I saw someone sitting in the driver's seat. I couldn't make out details through the grimy windshield. Just a silhouette. But it turned to watch me as I passed, its head rotating with a smooth mechanical motion. There's someone in the abandoned truck, I said. I know, Grady replied. There's always been someone in mine. The rock slide I can't cross? There's a person standing on top of it. Watching, waiting. I think it's me. I think it's what I'll become if I stop trying to escape. What do you mean? We don't just drive in circles forever. Eventually, we become part of the tunnel. Part of the obstacles it shows to new arrivals. I've heard voices on the CB, people who've been here so long they can't remember their names or where they came from. They're not people anymore. They're just echoes. Recordings that the tunnel plays on repeat. I thought about the figure in the abandoned truck, about the shape I'd seen standing in the road, about all the voices I'd heard on the CB. How long before that happens to us? I asked. I don't know. Maybe it's already started. Maybe we're already echoes, and we just don't know it yet. The tunnel narrowed again. Now maybe 8 feet across. My mirrors were almost scraping the walls. The ceiling seemed lower too, pressing down, making the cab feel smaller. It's getting tighter, I said, trying to keep the panic out of my voice. Fight it. Don't let the tunnel know you're afraid. That's when it gets worse. How do I fight something I can't see or understand? You just do. You keep thinking, keep talking, keep reminding yourself that you're real. That's all we have. Our minds. Once we lose those, we lose everything. The green light appeared, promising another exit that would lead straight back to the entrance. I braced myself for the loop, for the disorienting moment when exit became entrance. But this time, something was different. As I approached the exit, I saw lights ahead. Not the dim glow of the outside world, but bright lights. Headlights, coming toward me from the exit. Another truck driving into the tunnel from the other side. "Grady," I said, "there's another vehicle coming toward me." "That's not possible. Nothing can enter from outside, only from the entrance. I'm telling you, I see headlights. A truck driving toward me." The vehicle grew closer, and I could make out more details. It was a truck, exactly like mine. Same model, same color, same company logo on the door. It was my truck. Driving toward me, with me behind the wheel, I watched myself approach, watched my own face behind the windshield, expression blank and empty. The other me didn't slow down, didn't swerve. Just kept coming straight at me. We were going to collide. I tried the brakes again, tried to turn, but nothing responded. Both trucks maintained their course, rolling toward each other at a steady speed. 50 feet apart. 30, 20, 10. The other truck passed through mine like we were both ghosts. I felt nothing, no impact, no sound. Just a momentary coldness, like I'd driven through a freezer. Then it was behind me, and I was still rolling forward toward the exit. "What just happened?" I asked, voice shaking. Grady was quiet for a long moment, then, "I think you just met another version of yourself. Another Nolan trapped in another loop. The tunnel has layers, remember? Sometimes they overlap. How many versions are there?" "I don't know. Could be 2, could be 100. Every time you loop, maybe you create a new version. Or maybe all the versions existed from the moment you first entered, and they're all happening at once." I drove through the exit, and instead of seeing the entrance again, I saw something different. The tunnel stretched ahead, but now the walls were lined with trucks. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, parked along both sides as far as I could see. All of them identical to mine. All of them empty. Or maybe not empty. As I rolled past, I saw movement in some of the cabs. Silhouettes behind windshields, all sitting motionless, all watching me pass. "Do you see this?" I asked. "See what?" "The trucks, hundreds of them, all parked along the walls." "No, I just see the tunnel, same as always." I drove past the endless line of trucks, and with each one I passed, I felt something pulling at me. Like the tunnel was trying to drag me out of my moving vehicle and into one of the parked ones, trying to make me join the others, the ones who'd stopped fighting. "I think the tunnel wants me to stop," I said. "Don't, whatever you do, don't stop moving. As long as you're driving, you're still you, still separate. The moment you stop, you become part of it." The line of trucks stretched on, and I noticed something else. They weren't just parked randomly. They were arranged in a pattern, a spiral, leading deeper into the tunnel, down a grade I hadn't noticed before. My truck started to follow the spiral. Down and down, the walls getting darker, the air getting colder. The headlights behind me followed, faithful as always. "I'm going down," I said. "There's a spiral road, and I'm descending." "That's the second layer," Grady said, his voice growing fainter. "I've heard about it, but I've never been there. If you go down there, I don't know if you can come back. I don't have a choice. The truck is driving itself. Then hold on. And whatever you see down there, don't believe it. Don't trust it. It's going to show you things, offer you things, but it's all lies." His voice faded, replaced by static. Then the static faded too, leaving only silence. I was alone, driving down a spiral road into the heart of the mountain, with only the ghost lights behind me for company. And ahead, at the bottom of the spiral, something was waiting. Something that had been waiting a very long time. The spiral descended for what felt like hours. My headlights barely touched the walls anymore, like the darkness down here was thicker, more resistant to light. The temperature in the cab dropped steadily. I could see my breath now, little clouds of fog that hung in the air longer than they should. The odometer kept counting. 200 miles since I'd entered the tunnel the second time. Impossible, but the numbers didn't lie. Or maybe they did. Maybe everything down here was a lie, and I was just too deep in it to recognize truth anymore. The parked trucks had disappeared. Now the walls were bare rock, rough and ancient, with veins of something that glittered in my headlights. Not metal, not crystal, something else. Something that seemed to pulse with its own faint light when I looked directly at it. The CB was dead. Not static, not even the hiss of empty channels. Just silence. I was cut off from Grady, from Kira, from whatever voices had been haunting the upper tunnel. Down here, I was truly alone, except for the lights behind me. They were still there, still exactly 50 feet back, still following with that same mechanical precision. The spiral finally leveled out, and I found myself on a straight road carved through solid rock. The ceiling was lower here, maybe 10 feet above my cab. The walls were close enough that I could have reached out and touched them if the windows would open. Ahead, the tunnel widened into something larger, a chamber. My headlights couldn't reach the far wall, couldn't find the ceiling. Just darkness that seemed to swallow the light. My truck rolled into the chamber and stopped. Just stopped. Engine still running, lights still on but no longer moving forward, like I'd reached the end of some invisible track. I tried the controls, the wheel was still locked, the pedals still dead. But something had changed. The pressure was gone. That feeling of being controlled, of being a passenger in my own vehicle, had lifted. I tried the door handle. It clicked, unlocked. I sat there for a moment, hand on the handle, trying to decide. Every instinct screamed at me not to open that door, not to leave the cab. Whatever was waiting out there in the darkness, I didn't want to meet it. But what was the alternative? Sit here forever? Wait for the tunnel to decide what happened next? I grabbed my flashlight, tested it. The beam was weak, barely penetrating a few feet, but it was something. I opened the door and stepped down. The cold hit me immediately. Deeper than the cold outside. Deeper than anything I'd felt in the tunnel above. This was the cold of deep earth, of places that had never known sunlight. It sank into my bones instantly. My boots hit stone instead of pavement. I swept the flashlight around, trying to get my bearings. The chamber was huge, bigger than any natural cave I'd ever seen. The walls curved away into darkness on all sides. Stalactites hung from somewhere overhead, their tips just barely visible at the edge of my light. Behind me, my truck sat with its engine idling and its headlights pointing into the void. The lights that had followed me were gone. Just empty darkness where they'd been. I walked forward slowly, flashlight beam cutting through the black. My footsteps echoed, each sound bouncing back from multiple directions at once. The chamber had strange acoustics, like it was designed to disorient. Shapes began to emerge from the darkness. Vehicles. More trucks, parked in a rough circle around the chamber's center. I counted 12, then 20, then lost track. All different makes and models, different years. Some looked new. Others were ancient, from decades ago, rusted and corroded. I approached the nearest one, a Kenworth, probably from the 80s based on the style. The driver's door was open, the interior light long dead. I shone my flashlight inside. Empty. The seat was covered in dust, the dashboard cracked and faded. But there was something on the seat. I leaned in closer, a logbook. I picked it up, careful not to let it crumble. The pages were brittle with age. I opened it to the last entry, October 15th, 1987. Took the tunnel route past Drum Peak. Dispatch said it would save time. Should have known better. Been driving in circles for 6 hours now. Fuel gauge won't move, radio's dead. If anyone finds this, tell my wife I'm sorry. The entry ended there. No name, no final note, just silence. I set the logbook back and moved to the next truck. This one was newer, maybe from the late 90s. The door was closed, but not locked. Inside, I found another logbook. March 3rd, 1998. The tunnel has me. I don't know how else to explain it. Every exit leads back to the entrance. Every mile I drive takes me nowhere. I've tried ramming the walls, tried driving backwards, tried everything. Nothing works. I'm going to keep trying. I have to believe there's a way out. The next truck, June 22nd, 2003. The next, November 8th, 2009. The next, February 17th, 2015. Each one had a logbook. Each one had a final entry describing the same thing. The loop, the impossible geometry, the slow realization that there was no escape, and each one was empty. The drivers were gone, leaving only their trucks and their final words. I reached the center of the circle. There was something there. A marker of some kind, carved from the same stone as the chamber floor. I knelt down and brushed away the dust. Not a marker, a mile post. Old, weathered, but unmistakable. Mile 247. The same number from Wayland's story. From the highway I'd never driven. But here it was, impossibly, at the bottom of this mountain. I stood up, mind reeling. This wasn't just the Drum Peak Tunnel. This was something bigger. Something that connected to other places, other roads, other traps. Mile 247 wasn't a location. It was a nexus, a point where things that shouldn't connect somehow did. You're starting to understand. I spun around, flashlight swinging wildly. A figure stood at the edge of my light. Tall and thin, wearing a parka. I couldn't see its face, but I knew that stance, that proportions. "Who are you?" I demanded. "I'm you, or I was, or I will be. Time doesn't work the same way down here." The figure stepped closer, and I saw its face. My face, but older, worn, with eyes that had seen too much. "That's not possible. You keep saying that. Hasn't been true yet, has it?" It smiled, and I recognized the expression. I'd used it myself countless times. Resignation disguised as humor. "What is this place?" I asked. "The bottom. The place where all the loops eventually lead. Every tunnel, every highway, every trap that catches drivers and won't let them go, they all end here in the heart of the mountain." "How do I get out?" "You don't. Nobody does. We're down here because we made the wrong choice somewhere up there. We stopped when we should have kept driving. We turned when we should have stayed straight. And now we're here, and here is where we stay. I backed away, hitting the side of my truck. No, I'm getting out. I'm going to drive back up that spiral and find the exit. I've tried 37 times by my count. Every time, I end up right back here. The spiral only goes one direction, down, never up. Then I'll walk, I'll climb. Good luck with that. The figure gestured, and I saw other shapes moving in the darkness beyond the trucks. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, all wearing parkas, all with my face, or variations of it. Different ages, different expressions, but fundamentally the same. These are all you? I asked. These are all us. Every version that came before, every choice that led here. We're Legion now, and you're about to join us. I'm not staying here. You already are. You've been here the whole time. The moment you entered the tunnel the first time, you split. One version of you made it out and continued to Watson Lake. That version is probably unloading cargo right now, wondering why he feels so tired, why he can't shake the memory of a tunnel that seemed longer than it should have been. And this version? This version stopped. This version turned around when the road was closed. This version made the wrong choice, and this version is mine now. The figures closed in, forming a circle around me. I could see their faces more clearly now. All me, but different. Some younger, like I was 5 years ago, some older, showing age I hadn't reached yet. Some were wrong in ways I couldn't articulate, like they'd been down here so long they'd started to drift from what human was supposed to look like. What happens to me? I asked. You join the circle, you wait, and when the next driver comes down the spiral, you'll be here to greet them, to explain, to welcome them to the bottom. I'll refuse. They all say that. But time is different here. Years feel like minutes. Minutes feel like years. Eventually, you forget why you were resisting. Forget that there was ever anything else. And then, you're one of us. I looked at the trucks arranged in their circle. At the logbooks filled with final desperate entries. At the mile marker that shouldn't exist. This was the trap's final form. Not a loop you drove forever, but a place you arrived at and could never leave. There has to be a way, I said. There is. The figure pointed toward the darkness beyond the circle of trucks. Through there, into the deeper darkness. Some of us have tried it. None have come back. What's out there? I don't know. Maybe the way out. Maybe something worse. Maybe nothing at all, and you just walk forever into darkness until you forget your own name. But it's the only option besides staying here. I looked at the darkness, then back at the circle of figures wearing my face, then at my truck, still idling, headlights cutting a path into the black. The truck, I said. Can I drive it into the darkness? Nobody's tried. Most of us can't even get our doors to open anymore. The trucks become part of the scenery after a while, monuments to the fact that we used to move. But my truck was still running, still functional. I'd just climbed out of it moments ago. I walked back to the cab, figures parting to let me through. I climbed in, pulled the door shut, and locked it. Through the windshield, I could see them all watching, waiting. I put the truck in gear, the transmission engaged. I felt it through the stick, through the seat, real, functional. I pressed the throttle, and the truck rolled forward, away from the circle, into the darkness beyond. The figures didn't follow. They just stood there, watching me go, a forest of identical faces slowly disappearing in my mirrors. The darkness was absolute. My headlights seemed to dim, to shrink, until they barely illuminated 10 feet ahead. But the truck kept moving, steady and sure, like it knew where it was going even if I didn't. The CB crackled to life. "Nolan, Nolan, can you hear me?" Kira's voice. Clear and immediate, like she was right next to me. I grabbed the mic. "Kira, I'm here. I'm in the tunnel. But I'm in some kind of chamber at the bottom. Nolan, you need to wake up. You've been in an accident." I froze. "What?" "You crashed about 2 miles from the tunnel entrance. Your truck went off the road. We've got paramedics on scene, but you're trapped in the cab. We're trying to cut you out. Can you hear me? You need to stay awake." No, I'm driving. I'm in the tunnel. There is no tunnel anymore. It collapsed in 2019. The road's been closed for years. Nolan, you're hurt and you're confused, but you need to listen to my voice and stay with me. Through the windshield, I saw lights, flashing red and blue. Emergency vehicles. The darkness was lifting, and I could see twisted metal, broken glass. The interior of my cab compressed and bent. "I'm getting you out," Kira said. "Just hold on, stay awake. Don't go back to sleep." But I was already moving away from the lights, back into the darkness, back into the tunnel that didn't exist anymore. "Nolan," her voice faded, replaced by the rumble of my engine, the hum of my tires on stone. The crash scene disappeared, swallowed by the black. I drove deeper, watching the darkness swallow my headlights, feeling the temperature drop even further. The CB cycled through channels, voices crackling in and out. Waylon, asking if anyone was still there. Grady, warning someone not to enter the tunnel. A dozen other voices I didn't recognize, all trapped in their own loops, all calling out to anyone who might listen. And underneath them all, a sound like chains dragging across stone. Getting closer. Or maybe I was getting closer to it. The darkness ahead began to change. Not lighter, just less absolute. I could see shapes now, structure, the suggestion of something vast. My truck rolled into another chamber, bigger than the first. The walls stretched up forever, disappearing into shadow, and in the center, illuminated by my failing headlights, was a road, a real road, paved and marked, with yellow lines and green mile markers stretching into the distance. Mile 247, mile 248, mile 249, going up, counting forward, promising progress. I followed it, truck picking up speed, and for the first time since entering the tunnel, I felt something like hope. This was the way out. Had to be. A road that went somewhere instead of nowhere. The miles ticked past. 250. 60. 70. The chamber walls fell away, replaced by open space. I couldn't see the ceiling anymore. Couldn't see anything except the road ahead and the markers counting up. Mile 280. My fuel gauge finally moved. Dropped from 3/4 to half. Real progress. Real miles. I was leaving the loop behind. The CB crackled. "Nolan, this is Watson Lake Dispatch. We've been trying to reach you for hours. Your delivery is overdue. What's your status?" I grabbed the mic, nearly sobbing with relief. "This is Nolan Fitch. I'm about 20 miles out. Had to take a detour through..." I paused. Through what? How did I explain where I'd been? "Through rough roads. I'll be there soon." "Copy that. We'll let the warehouse know you're coming." Real. Normal. The loop was broken. I'd found the way through. Mile 310. The road began to slope upward. I could feel it in the engine, the way the transmission had to work harder. I was climbing, getting closer to the surface. Mile 315. Light appeared ahead. Real light. Gray and cold and beautiful. The exit. I pressed down on the throttle, truck surging forward and burst out of the tunnel into snow and wind and the most beautiful pre-dawn darkness I'd ever seen. The road stretched ahead, empty and normal. I could see power lines, fence posts, the ordinary landscape of the Yukon Highway. Real, solid, true. I drove for another hour, watching the miles count normally, watching my fuel gauge drop at the expected rate. Everything was working correctly. Everything was normal. Watson Lake appeared on the horizon, lights twinkling in the distance. I'd made it. Against all odds, I'd escaped the tunnel and completed my delivery. I pulled into the warehouse yard, backed up to the loading dock, and killed the engine. Sat there for a moment, hands shaking, trying to process everything that had happened. A worker knocked on my door. I climbed down, legs unsteady, and handed him the paperwork. "Rough trip?" he asked, looking at me with concern. "You could say that. You look like you've been through hell." "Close enough." I did the inspection while they unloaded, checking for damage. Everything was fine. The truck had held up perfectly, despite hours of driving through impossible spaces. The worker came back with my signed paperwork. "All set. You okay to drive back, or do you want to rest?" "I'm fine," I lied. "Long haul back to Whitehorse. I'll grab some sleep at the next stop." I climbed back into the cab and pulled out of the yard. The highway stretched north, familiar and ordinary. The same route I'd driven dozens of times. About 30 miles out, I passed a historical marker I'd never noticed before. I slowed down to read it. Drum Peak Tunnel, 1956, 2019. Closed following structural collapse. Memorial to those lost. Below the text was a list of names. Drivers who'd died in or near the tunnel over the years. I scanned the list. Grady McCall, 2019. Waylon Trask, 2020. And at the bottom, in fresher letters that hadn't weathered like the others, Nolan Fitch, 2025. I stared at my own name for a long moment. Then I looked in my rearview mirror. 2 headlights, 50 feet back, perfectly level, steadily following. I pressed down on the throttle and kept driving north. The lights matched my speed, mile 280, mile 270, mile 260. Counting down now, not up, moving backwards toward a destination I'd already passed. The CB crackled. "Welcome back, Nolan," Grady's voice said. "How was the outside?" I reached for the mic but stopped. My hand looked different, pale, thin, the fingers too long. In the mirror, between my truck and the following lights, a figure stood in the road, wearing a parka, watching me pass with empty eyes. It had my face. Mile 250. The tunnel entrance appeared ahead, carved into the side of a mountain that shouldn't be here. The sign read, "Drum Peak Access. Authorized vehicles only." My hands turned the wheel without permission. The truck took the turn, down the access road, through the trees, into the waiting darkness. The CB filled with voices, dozens of them, all calling out to anyone who might listen, all trapped in their own loops, all waiting for the next driver to join them. I tried to add my voice to theirs, tried to warn whoever came next. But when I opened my mouth, all that came out was, "Still there?" My name is Bryce Holloway, and I've been driving the Dalton Highway for 6 years. It's one of the most dangerous roads in North America. 414 miles of gravel, ice, and isolation stretching from Fairbanks to Deadhorse, cutting through the heart of Alaska, where the temperature can drop to 60 below, and help is measured in hours, not minutes. Most people call it the Haul Road. Truckers who run it regularly just call it the Dalton. And if you drive it long enough, you learn to respect it, because the Dalton doesn't forgive mistakes. It was the third week of January when I first saw the snowplow. I was hauling drilling equipment north to Prudhoe Bay, leaving Fairbanks at 4 in the afternoon with the forecast calling for moderate snow and wind. Nothing unusual. Winter on the Dalton meant snow and wind. That was just how it was. The first 100 miles went smooth. Traffic was light, just a handful of other trucks making the run north and a few empty southbound haulers heading back for their next load. The snow was steady but manageable, and my chains were biting into the ice with that reassuring rhythm that meant good traction. Darkness fell fast this time of year. By 6 p.m., it was full night, and my headlights were the only thing keeping the wilderness at bay. The road ahead was a narrow tunnel of light, with nothing but black forest and frozen tundra pressing in from all sides. That's when I first saw his lights, amber strobes cutting through the snow ahead, rotating in that distinctive pattern that meant road maintenance. A snowplow, blade down, clearing the northbound lane. I could see the cascade of snow being pushed to the side, the big orange truck moving at a steady 20 miles per hour. I slowed down, keeping a safe distance. No point in crowding a plow operator. They're doing a job that keeps the rest of us alive, and the last thing they need is some impatient trucker breathing down their neck. The CB crackled. Northbound truck behind the plow. This is state maintenance. You can pass when you're ready. I'll pull to the right at the next wide spot. Copy that, I responded. Appreciate the clear road. This is Bryce Holloway in the Freightliner. I'll wait for your signal. Roger. Should be about 2 miles ahead. Name's Orrin Huxley, by the way. Been clearing this stretch since before breakfast. Long day, I said. They all are up here. We drove in silence for the next few minutes, my truck following his plow through the falling snow. I watched the blade work, pushing the accumulation aside with mechanical precision. Orrin knew what he was doing. The road behind him was as clear as you could hope for in these conditions. The wide spot appeared, and Orrin pulled to the right as promised. I eased past, catching a glimpse of him in the plow cab. Older guy, maybe late 50s, with a beard gone mostly gray and a worn baseball cap. He raised a hand in greeting as I passed, and I flashed my lights in thanks. "Safe travels," he said over the CB. "You too. Thanks for the clear road." I rolled on, leaving the amber strobes fading in my mirror. The road ahead was rougher now, snow already starting to accumulate without the plow's constant attention. But that was expected. Orrin would make another pass eventually, and the cycle would continue. I made it to the Yukon River crossing just after 8 p.m. There's a small camp there, nothing fancy, just a place for drivers to fuel up, grab food, and check road conditions. I pulled in, planning to top off my tank and maybe grab 15 minutes of rest before pushing on. The place was nearly empty. Just one other truck parked by the fuel pumps and a beat-up pickup near the building. I filled my tank, stretched my legs, and went inside. The woman behind the counter looked up from her phone. "Help you?" "Coffee, black, and any road updates?" "Fresh pot just finished. Roads open all the way to Dead Horse, but they're calling for heavier snow after midnight. You planning to push through?" "That's the plan. I've got a delivery deadline." She poured the coffee and slid it across the counter. "Saw you come in behind the plow. Orrin still out there?" "Yeah. Passed him about 20 miles south. He's been clearing since morning," he said. She frowned. "Morning? That doesn't sound right." "Why not?" "Orrin's shift ends at 6. He should have been off the road 2 hours ago. Maybe he's running late. Conditions are bad." "Maybe." But she didn't sound convinced. "You see anyone else out there? Any other maintenance vehicles?" "No, just him." She was quiet for a moment, then shrugged. "Well, I'm sure he knows what he's doing. He's been running this road longer than most." I finished my coffee, paid, and headed back to my truck. The snow was coming down heavier now, and the wind had picked up. I could feel it rocking the trailer as I climbed into the cab. I fired up the engine, checked my mirrors, and rolled back onto the highway. The road was already covered again, a fresh layer of snow erasing any trace of the traffic that had passed through earlier. About 30 miles north of the river, I saw the amber strobes again. The plow was ahead of me, blade down, clearing the road in steady passes. I checked my watch, 9:15. The woman at the camp had said Oren's shift ended at 6, so either he was running way over or this was a different plow operator. I grabbed the CB. Snowplow ahead, this is the northbound Freightliner about a quarter-mile back. You working a double shift tonight? Silence. Then, this is Oren Huxley. Yeah, had to stay out. They're short-staffed and the snow's not letting up. It was the same voice from before. Same cadence. Same slight rasp that spoke of too many years breathing cold air and diesel fumes. Rough night for it, I said. They all are. I followed him for another 20 miles, watching the snow pile up on either side of his blade. He was good at his job. The road behind him was clean, well-defined, easy to navigate. Without him out here, this section would be impassable by midnight. We reached another wide spot and Oren pulled over to let me pass. I rolled by slowly, looking for his face in the cab. He raised his hand in the same greeting. Same beard, same cap. But something about the gesture felt off, too precise, too identical to the first time. Like he was repeating a recording. I pushed the thought away. Long hours on dark roads made you imagine things. Made you see patterns where there weren't any. Oren was just a thorough guy who did his job the same way every time. Nothing strange about that. Safe travels, he said over the CB. You too. I drove on, leaving the strobes behind once more. The snow was getting worse, visibility dropping to maybe 50 feet. I slowed to 40, then 35, watching the road carefully. Even with good tires and chains, black ice could send you into the ditch in seconds. An hour passed, then another. I was making decent time despite the weather, the road relatively clear thanks to Oren's work. I should have been grateful. Should have been focused on the miles ahead. But something was nagging at me. Something about the way he'd raised his hand. The exact same motion, the exact same angle. I tried the CB, cycling through channels, listening for other traffic. Nothing but static. I was alone out here except for Oren somewhere behind me, and whoever was waiting at the other end of this road. The amber strobes appeared in my mirror. I blinked, checking the reflection. The plow was behind me now, maybe a quarter-mile back, coming up fast. Too fast. Snow plows didn't move at 50 miles per hour. They couldn't, not with the blade down. But the strobes were getting closer. I watched the distance shrink. Half a mile, quarter mile, 100 feet. The CB crackled. Northbound Freightliner, this is Oren Huxley. You're going to want to pull over. Road's not safe ahead. What's the problem? I asked, eyes on the mirror. Avalanche risk. They're doing controlled blasting. You'll need to wait it out. I didn't get any alerts about blasting. Last-minute decision. Weather's making things unstable. Pull over at the next turnout and wait for the all-clear. The strobes were right behind me now, close enough that I could see the plow blade in my mirror. It was down, scraping the road, throwing up a wall of snow, and behind the blade, barely visible through the glare of the strobes, was the cab. Oren sat behind the wheel, hand raised in that same greeting gesture. But he wasn't moving, wasn't steering. The plow was driving itself, and Oren was just a fixture, a prop. I pressed down on the throttle, truck surging forward. The plow matched my speed, staying exactly the same distance behind. The strobes flashed in rhythm, hypnotic and insistent. Pull over, Oren's voice said again. Same tone, same inflection. Road's not safe ahead. I'm not stopping, I said into the CB. You'll need to wait for the all clear. The same words, like a loop, like he was reading from a script he couldn't deviate from. I pushed my speed up to 55, watching the road carefully. Too fast for these conditions, but I needed distance. Needed to get away from those strobes and that voice that wasn't quite right. The plow fell back, unable to match my speed. I watched it shrink in the mirror, the amber lights fading into the snow. 5 miles later, I slowed down, heart still hammering. What the hell had just happened? Was Oren following me, testing me, or was something else going on? I grabbed my phone, no signal. Out here, that was normal. Cell towers were few and far between on the Dalton. But it meant I couldn't call anyone. Couldn't check on road conditions or verify Oren's story about avalanche blasting. I was on my own. The road stretched ahead, empty and white. No strobes, no following vehicles. Just me and the snow and the darkness. I drove for another hour, constantly checking my mirrors, waiting for the amber lights to reappear. They didn't. Whatever had happened back there, I'd left it behind. A sign appeared in my headlights. Coldfoot Camp, 15 miles. Coldfoot was the last major stop before the final push to Dead Horse. Fuel, food, lodging. A place to rest and regroup. I needed that. Needed to talk to someone, to ground myself in reality. The camp appeared out of the snow, lights blazing like a beacon. I pulled in, found a parking spot, and killed the engine. Sat there for a moment, hands on the wheel, breathing hard. Other trucks were parked in neat rows, drivers sleeping or preparing for their next leg. Everything looked normal. Safe. I climbed down and headed for the main building. A long, low structure with warmth spilling from its windows. Inside, a handful of drivers sat at tables, eating or drinking coffee or staring at their phones. A woman worked behind the counter, maybe 40, with tired eyes and a name tag that read Maeve. She looked up as I approached. "Coffee?" she asked. "Yeah, and information." "What kind?" I passed a snowplow on the road. Driver named Oren Huxley. He was acting strange, following too close, saying things that didn't make sense. "You know him?" Her expression changed. The professional warmth disappeared, replaced by something harder, something cautious. "Where did you see this plow?" she asked quietly. "About 60 miles south. He cleared the road. I passed him, then he showed up behind me again, driving way too fast." "That's not possible." "I know what I saw." "No, you don't understand." She set down the coffee pot and leaned forward. Oren Huxley died 3 years ago. His plow went through the ice on a river crossing during spring breakup. They recovered the vehicle, but they never found his body. I stared at her, trying to process what she'd just said. "That's not funny." "I'm not joking. Check the records if you want. Oren Huxley died March 2022. There was a memorial service and everything." "Then who the hell was driving that plow?" "Nobody, because there is no plow. People see it sometimes, especially in bad weather. The amber strobes, the blade pushing snow, the voice on the CB, but when they get close there's nothing there. Just empty road." "I saw him. He waved at me." "I believe you saw something, but it wasn't Oren, not the real one, just an echo, maybe. Something that keeps doing the same job it did in life, even after death." I backed away from the counter, mind reeling. This couldn't be real. Couldn't be happening. Ghosts didn't drive snowplows. Dead men didn't clear roads. "Look," Maeve said, her voice softer now. "You're not the first driver to report this, and you won't be the last. The Dalton has a way of showing you things, especially when you're tired and alone. Sometimes those things are real, sometimes they're not. The trick is learning which is which." How do I tell the difference? You can't. That's the problem. She poured the coffee and slid it across the counter. My advice? Get some rest. Clear your head. And when you get back on the road, if you see those strobes again, don't follow them. Don't engage. Just keep driving and pretend you didn't see anything. And if they follow me? She didn't answer, just looked at me with those tired eyes that had seen too much and believed too little. I took the coffee to a table by the window and sat down, staring out at the snow. My truck sat in the lot, dark and solid and real. A known quantity in a world that was suddenly making no sense. Other drivers came and went. Normal conversation. Normal complaints about weather and dispatchers and late payments. Everything was normal. Except for the amber strobes I could see in the distance, moving along the highway. Coming closer. Always coming closer. I watched the amber strobes through the window, moving slowly along the distant highway. They paced back and forth in a regular pattern, clearing a section of road, then turning around and clearing it again. Methodical. Tireless. Exactly like a good plow operator should work. Except there was no operator, just an echo, Maeve had called it. A ghost doing the same job it had done in life. I finished my coffee and went back to the counter. Maeve was restocking supplies, moving with the efficiency of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. How many people have seen it? I asked. She didn't look up. The plow? Hard to say. Most drivers don't report it. They see the strobes, get out of the way, and keep moving. Only the ones who get too close, who try to interact with it. They're the ones who come in here looking for answers. What happens to them? Nothing. They finish their run, deliver their loads, go home. But they remember. And some of them stop driving the Dalton after that. Find work on other routes, easier routes. Did you ever see it? She paused, hands still on the inventory clipboard. Once, about 8 years ago, I was driving home late from Fairbanks, middle of winter. Road conditions terrible. I saw the strobes ahead, followed them for 20 miles. The road behind the plow was perfect, like glass. But when I finally passed, there was no one in the cab, just an empty seat and the controls moving on their own. What did you do? Drove faster than I should have and didn't look back. Got home, quit driving, took this job instead. Figured if I was going to be stuck on the Dalton, better to be somewhere warm with other people around. Has anyone tried to stop it? Document it? State troopers went out looking for it a few times after reports came in. Never found anything. The plow's on record as salvaged and scrapped. The VIN doesn't exist in any database anymore, but people keep seeing it, year after year, always in the worst weather. I looked back at the window. The strobes had moved closer, now maybe a mile from the camp. It's coming this way. Maeve came over and stood next to me watching the lights. It does that sometimes. Circles the camp like it's checking on us, making sure we're okay before heading back out. That's insane. Is it? Orrin loved this job. Loved keeping the road clear, keeping drivers safe. If any part of him could come back, why wouldn't it be the part that cared the most? The strobes reached the camp entrance, paused there for a moment, rotating slowly. Through the falling snow, I could almost see the outline of the plow. Big and orange and solid looking. Real. Then it turned and headed back toward the highway, the lights fading into the distance. You should get some rest, Maeve said. You've got another 200 miles to Dead Horse. Weather's supposed to get worse around midnight. I don't think I can sleep. Then at least sit for a while. Eat something. Give yourself time to process what you saw. I nodded and returned to my table. A few other drivers glanced at me, probably wondering why I looked so shaken. One of them, an older guy with a thick beard, got up and came over. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah, just tired. Saw you talking to Maeve. She tell you about the plow?" I looked up at him, surprised. "You know about it?" Most of us who run this road regularly do. Some believe it, some don't. I'm somewhere in the middle. He sat down without asking. "Name's Ray. Been driving the Dalton for 15 years. Bryce, 6 years. So you're still new." He smiled without humor. "The Dalton has layers. Things you learn the longer you drive it. The plow is one of them. There are others." "What others?" "Hitchhikers that appear and disappear. Lights that follow you for miles, then vanish. CB transmissions from drivers who died years ago. This road is old, Bryce, and it's got a long memory. Why does this keep happening? Why here?" Ray shrugged. "Isolation, maybe. Cold. The way time feels different up here, especially in winter when the sun barely rises. People get lost in their own heads, start seeing things that might not be there. Or maybe they see things that are there but shouldn't be. That doesn't explain the plow. Multiple people have seen it. Multiple people have seen lots of things. Doesn't make them real, but it doesn't make them fake either. The Dalton exists in a space between those two things. You'll understand that better the longer you drive it." He stood up, nodded once, and went back to his table. I sat there for another 20 minutes, trying to decide what to do. I could sleep here, wait out the worst of the weather, deliver my load late and eat the penalty. Or I could push through, make my deadline, and deal with whatever I encountered on the road. The strobes appeared in the distance again, moving north now, clearing the route I'd be taking. I made my decision. I went back to my truck, did a thorough pre-trip inspection, and climbed into the cab. The engine fired up smoothly, and the heater started blasting warm air. Everything was normal, functional, real. I pulled out of the camp and back onto the highway, heading north toward Dead Horse. The road was clear for the first few miles, recently plowed, the surface dark and wet under my headlights. Then the snow started falling heavier. Within minutes, visibility dropped to 30 feet. I slowed to 35, watching the road carefully, trusting my chains to keep me from sliding. The amber strobes appeared ahead. Oren's plow, moving at its steady 20 miles per hour, blade down, clearing a path through the accumulating snow. I hung back, maintaining distance, watching the methodical way it worked. The CB crackled. "Northbound Freightliner. You can pass when ready." Oren's voice, same as before, same tone. I didn't respond, just followed, keeping 50 feet between us. "Northbound Freightliner. I'll pull over at the next wide spot." Still, I said nothing. The plow continued for another mile, then pulled to the right exactly as promised. I eased past, looking into the cab as I did. Oren sat there, hand raised in greeting. But this time I looked closer. Really looked. His hand wasn't moving. It was frozen in that position, held up like a mannequin's. And his face behind the glare of the work lights was wrong. The features were blurred, indistinct, like a photograph left out in the rain. I accelerated past, heart pounding. In my mirror, I watched the plow pull back onto the road and continue north, following me. The CB crackled again. "Safe travels." But the voice was different now. Flatter, more mechanical, like someone was playing a recording and the tape had stretched. I grabbed the mic. "Oren, if you can hear me, if there's anything left of you in there, I need you to stop following me." Silence. "Oren? Safe travels," the voice repeated. Exact same inflection. Exact same pause. I tried again. "Oren Huxley, March 2022. River crossing. Do you remember?" The static on the CB changed. Became something else. A sound like wind or breath, or the echo of something trying to speak from very far away. Then, cold, so cold, my blood froze. Oren, water, through the ice, couldn't get out, so cold. You died 3 years ago. Did I? The voice was lost, confused. I'm still working, still clearing the road. That's my job. That's what I do. You don't have to anymore. You can rest. Rest? The word sounded foreign, like he'd forgotten what it meant. No. Road's not clear. Never clear. Always more snow. Always more work. The strobes behind me flashed faster, more urgent. The plow was accelerating, closing the distance. Oren, you need to stop. You're scaring people. Scaring? The voice grew sharper. I'm helping. Keeping the road safe. Keeping drivers alive, that's what I do. That's what I've always done. But you're dead. The CB went silent. The strobes stopped flashing, and for a moment, everything was still. Just the sound of my engine and the hiss of tires on wet pavement. Then the voice came back, different now. Angry. You think I don't know that? You think I don't feel the water filling my lungs every night? The cold crushing my chest? I know what happened. I know where I am, but I can't stop. Won't stop. This road needs me, and I won't let it take anyone else. The plow surged forward, faster than anything that size should move. The blade scraped the pavement, throwing up sparks that lit the darkness behind me. I pressed the throttle down, truck responding, but the plow matched my speed. 60, 70, the whole rig shook, trailer swaying dangerously on the icy road. Slow down, I shouted into the mic. You're going to kill us both. Already dead, Oren's voice said, calm now, almost peaceful. Can't die twice. The plow pulled alongside me, impossible as that should be. Through the window, I could see Oren behind the wheel. His face was clearer now, and I wished it wasn't. I could see the water damage, the bloating, the way his eyes had gone milky white. He turned to look at me, and his mouth moved, forming words I couldn't hear over the roar of the engines. Then he pointed ahead. I looked forward and saw what he was warning me about. Black ice, covering the entire road, gleaming like oil in my headlights. At this speed, I'd lose control, jackknife, maybe roll the whole rig. I hit the brakes, felt the anti-lock system pulse, but the trailer was already sliding. I could feel it going, the weight shifting wrong, the whole load wanting to swap ends with the cab. The plow moved in front of me, blade angling across my path. It happened so fast I didn't have time to react. My bumper hit the blade, and instead of crushing through, it somehow arrested my forward momentum without sending me into a spin. We slid together, locked together, the plow acting as an anchor. 60 became 50, 40, 30, 20. We came to a stop in the middle of the road, my truck at an angle. The plow blade still pressed against my bumper. I sat there, breathing hard, hands locked on the wheel. Through the windshield, I could see Oren in his cab. He was looking at me, and this time his expression was clear. Sad. Tired. Human. The CB crackled. Pay attention out here. Road doesn't forgive. Thank you, I managed. Just doing my job. The plow backed away, blade lifting, and rolled past me, heading north. The amber strobes flashed once, twice, then faded into the snow. I sat there for a long moment, letting my heart rate return to normal. Then I put the truck in gear and continued north, driving slowly, watching for ice. The rest of the night passed without incident. No amber strobes, no CB transmissions, just snow and darkness and the slow accumulation of miles. I reached Dead Horse just after 6 a.m., delivered my load, and found a place to sleep. But sleep didn't come easy. I kept seeing Oren's face, the way he'd looked at me in that final moment. Not threatening, not angry, just tired. So incredibly tired. The next day I took the long way back to Fairbanks. Different route, better roads. It added 6 hours to my trip, but I didn't care. I needed distance from the Dalton, distance from whatever Oren had become. But 3 weeks later, I got another run north. Different cargo, same destination. And the dispatcher specifically requested me because I knew the route and could be trusted to deliver on time regardless of weather. I tried to decline, made excuses, said I was sick, said my truck needed maintenance, said anything I could think of. But the money was good, and I needed the work, and eventually I ran out of reasons to say no. So I took the run. And somewhere around mile 200, in the worst blizzard I'd seen all year, the amber strobes appeared in my mirror. This time, I didn't run. I slowed down, let the plow catch up, and when Oren's voice came through the CB, I answered. "Evening, Oren?" "Evening. Rough night out here." "Yeah. Thanks for clearing the road." "Just doing my job." We drove in silence for a while, the plow behind me, the strobes casting amber light across the snow. It felt almost companionable, like having a partner watching your back. "Oren," I said eventually, "that night you went through the ice. Were you scared?" Long pause. Terrified, but I kept thinking about the drivers who'd be coming through, who'd need the road clear, who'd need someone looking out for them. Even when the water was filling the cab, that's what I thought about. "Is that why you're still here?" "I think so. I think part of me couldn't let go. Couldn't accept that someone else would take over, that the road would go on without me. So here I am, still working, still clearing. Do you want to stop?" Another pause, longer this time. "I don't know if I can. This is who I am now. This is what I do. Taking that away, I don't know what would be left. You'd be at rest, maybe. Or maybe I'd be nothing at all. At least this way, I'm useful. I'm still protecting people." I didn't have an answer for that. How do you convince someone to give up the only purpose they have left, even if that purpose is killing them? Even if they're already dead? "Well," I said finally, "I appreciate the company and the clear road. That's what I'm here for." The strobes stayed with me for another 50 miles, then gradually fell back and disappeared. I continued north alone, but somehow I didn't feel alone. Oren was out there somewhere, still working, still clearing, still doing the only job he'd ever truly loved. And maybe that wasn't such a bad way to exist, even if you were already dead. I ran the Dalton 12 more times over the next 4 months. Every trip, I saw the strobes, sometimes ahead of me, clearing the road, sometimes behind, following at that respectful distance. And every time, Oren's voice would come through the CB with the same greeting. "Evening, rough night out here. Yeah, thanks for clearing the road. Just doing my job." It became routine, comfortable even. Other drivers reported seeing the plow too, but they didn't talk to it like I did. They passed it quickly and tried to forget. But I'd started to understand what Maeve had meant about the Dalton having layers. And Oren was part of that layer now, as much as the ice and the wind and the endless darkness. It was mid-May when things changed. Spring breakup was starting, that dangerous time when the ice on rivers gets thin and the snow melts into treacherous mud. The Dalton becomes a different kind of dangerous during breakup, less predictable, more volatile. I was running a load of supplies north when I got the call from dispatch. A truck had gone off the road near the same river crossing where Oren had died 3 years earlier. Driver was alive, but trapped, vehicle halfway into the water. State Patrol was responding, but they were hours away. "You're the closest truck," dispatch said. "They need someone who knows the road. Can you respond?" I was about 40 miles south of the crossing. "Copy, I'm on my way." I pushed my speed up, probably faster than I should have, but someone's life was on the line. The CB was mostly quiet, just occasional chatter from other trucks further south. I tried calling ahead, seeing if anyone was closer, but got no response. 20 miles from the crossing, the amber strobes appeared, not behind me this time. Ahead, coming toward me from the north, the plow was moving fast, faster than I'd ever seen it move, blade up, strobes flashing urgently. Oren's voice crackled through. "Bryce, don't go to the crossing. There's a driver in the water. I have to help." "You can't. Ice is too thin. You'll go through same as I did." "I'll be careful." That's what I said. His voice was strained, urgent in a way I'd never heard before. "Please, turn around. Let the patrol handle it." They're hours away. He could be dead by then. The plow stopped in the middle of the road, blocking my path. Through the windshield, I could see Oren's form behind the wheel, more solid than usual, almost real. "Bryce, I'm begging you. I know what that water feels like. Know what it's like to drown in the dark with nobody coming. I won't let you go through that." I stopped my truck about 20 feet from the plow. "Then come with me. Help me get him out." Silence, long and heavy. I can't leave this stretch of road. I've tried. Something holds me here between mile marker 220 and 245. I can't go beyond that. The crossing is at 223. You can reach it. Reaching it and helping are different things. I'm not solid anymore, Bryce. I can push snow and stop trucks, but I can't pull someone from the water. Then guide me. Tell me where it's safe. Another pause, then, "You're not going to turn around, are you?" "No." The plow backed up, clearing the road. "Then follow me close. And I mean close. Don't deviate from my tracks, not even a foot." We rolled forward together, my truck behind his plow, moving at maybe 15 miles per hour. The landscape around us was changing, the snow melting into muddy patches, rivulets of water running across the road. "The ice goes bad this time of year," Oren said. "Looks solid, but underneath it's rotten. Step in the wrong place and you drop straight through." "How do you know where it's safe?" "Because I fell through every unsafe spot already. Learned the hard way." We reached the crossing. I could see the other truck now, a Peterbilt like mine, tilted at a 45-degree angle with its cab hanging over the river. The trailer was still on solid ground, but the tractor was halfway in the water, and I could see the driver moving behind the windshield. Oren's plow stopped at the edge of the safe zone. "This is as far as vehicles go. You'll have to walk from here." I grabbed my emergency kit and climbed down, boots sinking into the mud. The air smelled like thaw and rot, that particular spring smell of things frozen, finally starting to decay. "Stay on the raised sections." Oren's voice came through on my handheld CB. "The gravel bars. Avoid anything that looks level or smooth. That's where the water pools and refreezes." I picked my way forward carefully, following his instructions. The truck was about 50 yards from solid ground, and every step felt like walking on eggshells. I could hear water running beneath the ice, a hollow, rushing sound that promised cold and darkness. The driver saw me coming and started shouting, voice muffled by the glass. I couldn't make out the words, but the panic was clear. "I'm coming!" I yelled. "Stay calm!" I was 20 feet away when I heard the crack. Not loud, just a subtle pop, like someone stepping on a twig. But in that moment I knew what it meant. "Move!" Oren's voice screamed through the CB. "Back up now!" I turned and ran, boots slipping in the mud. Behind me, I heard a sound like a gunshot as the ice gave way. I didn't look back, just focused on reaching the gravel bar, on getting to solid ground. I made it with maybe 3 feet to spare, turned around and saw the Peterbilt had shifted, dropped lower, the cab now fully in the water. But the driver was still moving, still trying to get the door open. "I can't reach him," I said into the CB. "The ice between us is gone." "I know." Oren's voice was quiet, resigned. "But I can." "You said you couldn't help. Said you weren't solid." "I'm solid enough for what needs doing, always have been. Just been too afraid to find out what happens after." I watched as the amber strobes on Oren's plow began to move, but not the plow itself. Just the lights, detaching somehow, floating forward across the broken ice toward the sinking truck. The lights resolved into a shape. A man, tall and broad-shouldered, wearing a heavy parka and work boots. Oren, looking more real than I'd ever seen him, walking across ice that shouldn't hold anything. He reached the Peterbilt and wrenched the door open with strength that seemed impossible. Reached in and pulled the driver out. A younger guy, maybe 30 years old, soaked and shivering, but alive. Oren carried him back across the ice, stepping on sections that crumbled behind him, moving with purpose and certainty. He reached the gravel bar and set the driver down next to me. "Get him warm," Oren said, his voice clear now, not filtered through CB static. "Hypothermia will kill him faster than the water." I stripped off my jacket and wrapped it around the driver, who was shaking so hard he couldn't speak. "Thank you," I managed, looking up at Oren. He was fading already. I could see through him now, see the landscape beyond his form. But he was smiling, the first genuine smile I'd ever seen on that weathered face. "Feels good," he said. "To help someone for real. Not just clear snow, but actually save a life. Been so long since I did that." "What happens now?" I asked. "Don't know. Maybe I finally get to rest. Maybe I just disappear. Either way, it's better than driving in circles forever." He looked back at his plow, sitting empty on the road. "Take care of the Dalton for me, would you? It's a good road. Dangerous, but good. Deserves someone who understands it." "I will." "And Bryce, thank you. For talking to me like I was still human. For not being afraid. Made these last few months a lot more bearable." I wanted to say more, wanted to ask questions, wanted to know what came next. But Oren was already gone, fading into the spring air like mist under the sun. The amber strobes on his plow flickered once, twice, then went dark. The plow itself began to fade too, becoming translucent. And then it was just gone. No trace it had ever been there except for the tire tracks in the mud and the cleared path it had made. I sat there with the rescued driver, waiting for the state patrol to arrive. It took 2 hours, and in that time the ice on the river broke up completely, massive chunks flowing downstream. If Oren hadn't stopped me, if he hadn't known where to walk, we'd both be in that water now. The patrol took our statements, asked how I'd gotten to the driver across broken ice. I told them I'd walked carefully and gotten lucky. They didn't believe me, but they couldn't prove otherwise. The driver backed up my story, said a stranger had pulled him out, said he owed his life to someone whose face he couldn't quite remember. I drove back to Fairbanks that night, running empty, thinking about Oren. About how he'd spent 3 years doing the job he loved, even after death. About how in the end he'd found a way to make it mean something more than just clearing snow. The Dalton felt different without him. Emptier. I listened to the CB, hoping to hear his voice one more time, but there was only the usual chatter. Other drivers. Other trucks. Normal life. I passed the spot where he'd made his last stand, where the plow had sat before it vanished. There was nothing there now except road and snow and the endless landscape. But sometimes, on the worst nights, when the weather turns and visibility drops to nothing, I think I see amber strobes in the distance, just for a moment, just long enough to remind me that someone's still watching, still clearing the road, still doing his job. I've been driving the Dalton for 7 years now, longer than most, and I plan to keep driving it for years to come. Because someone needs to understand this road. Someone needs to know its layers and its secrets and the things that live between the miles. Orrin taught me that, and I won't forget. Last week, I passed a truck stopped on the shoulder with its hazards flashing. Driver was outside, looking at a flat tire, looking helpless in the blowing snow. I pulled over to help, even though I was running late, even though it would cost me time I didn't have. Because that's what you do on the Dalton. You help. You watch out for other drivers. You remember that out here we're all we have. As I was changing his tire, working in the cold and the wind, my CB crackled. Just static. But underneath it, faint and far away, I could have sworn I heard a voice. Just doing my job. I looked up at the empty road, at the snow swirling in my headlights, and smiled. Yeah, I said quietly. Me too. The amber strobes appeared in my mirror as I pulled back onto the highway. Faint, distant, already fading. But they were there, always there, watching over the road that never sleeps.